And welcome to a meeting of Brant County Council. Noting that Councillor Garneau and Councillor Kyle are online, and Councillor Chambers will either be late or he won't show up. He's on his way from somewhere to here, and he's not sure whether he's going to get here on time. So noting that Councillor Chambers isn't here and the other two are online. With that being said, the first thing we're going to do is have a land acknowledgement with Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we gather, we acknowledge that we meet on the lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Six Nations of the Grand River, and the traditional territory of the Attawandarock. We remind ourselves that the County of Brant is situated on lands that are full of rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. We recognize the significance of their contributions to the past, present, and future of this land. As a county, we have a shared responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we live and work, and a commitment to the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. We commit to continue learning, reflecting on our past, and working in allyship.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. The third thing on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Councillor Coleman, seconded by...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Garneau, that the County of Brant Council agenda of October 14, 2025 be approved, and that the Section 4E of the County's Brant procedural bylaw be suspended to allow for the consideration of matters not under the Planning Act, and namely following items due to their time-sensitive nature. Item 13.1, Walters Incorporated request for a letter of support. Item 16.1, Brant Municipal Enterprises report to the shareholders Chief Executive Officer position.
Thank you. Councillor Howes?
Mr. Mayor, in addition to those adjustments, I'd like to move that we move item 12.1 up to right after delegation item number 5 because they're related topics.
Thank you. You're okay with that, Councillor Coleman? Any other additions to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the agenda as amended? Thank you. Okay. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Does anyone see any that are obvious? If one pops up, please let me be the first one to know. Which takes us to number 5.1, which is a delegation, and we have someone from Dillon Consulting coming up to make a presentation. And if you could just give us your full name, please, and who you represent for the clerk.
My name is Chun Chu, and I'm representing Dillon Consulting.
Thank you.
And through the mayor, I'm just going to give a really quick introduction before we dive into this, and Chun will give the breadth of the presentation. But this evening, we're presenting this community planning permit system. So this delegation is the presentation of the report that was moved up on the agenda. And what this is an update on phase 1 of the project. So it's a very exciting project. It's revamping how we're looking at land use planning in the county, implementing our official plan. It will replace our zoning bylaw and our site plan control bylaw. And Chun, myself, and Nagin are just going to do a brief presentation of the staff report for the benefit of those in attendance. You'll see that there's quite a few attachments to the report as well, and quite a bit of information. So we're just going to go through some of the highlights of that very quickly. The presentation itself will speak to what a CPPS is, who else has implemented this community planning permit system. You'll hear that CPPS acronym quite a bit. We'll speak a bit to the benefits and challenges, the opportunities for the County of Brant's CPPS specifically, and how that might apply here in Brant. And again, a bit of the local context, and then the conclusion, the next steps. And specifically will be kind of overarching theme will be the rationale for modernizing our planning framework through this CPPS. So again, we're introducing the purpose of the CPPS project. This is kind of the end of phase 1 as we we touch on some of the foundational assumptions that are needed to actually create the CPPS framework, the draft of that. We'll be asking some strategic questions, highlighting some of the existing challenges in meeting the goals and policies of the official plan. And you'll see that a little bit in some of the development applications that we see coming forward right now. We're in a bit of a gap period where the zoning bylaw itself isn't necessarily implementing the official plan the way it should be. The zoning bylaw was created under the former official plan. So we're working towards a new framework that will implement the official plan the best way that it can. And that will be a more modernized and efficient development application process. So all of that's kind of covered in our trends and issues report. And what we're going to do is present some of the background information here, and then all of that will come together to inform a first draft of the CPP bylaw, which is what we will present to you in the new year. And that will be the key piece that the public will engage on. So I'll hand it over to Chun to walk us through some of the details on community planning permit system.
Council, can I get it put on the floor, please, so we can, thank you, Councilor Pierce, Councilor Bell, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, carried.
Thank you, Brendan. So what is a CPPS? I'll be using the acronym CPPS throughout this presentation, and it stands for Community Planning Permit System. It's a tool enabled under the Planning Act that can replace the three traditional processes of a zoning bylaw amendment, site plan control, and minor variance. The CPPS would combine these three processes into one application and approvals process. A CPPS can apply to a part or the entirety of a municipality. CPPS is becoming more popular in Ontario since it was first introduced in 2007. This slide lists 7 municipalities that have a CPPS in place. Beyond these, there are numerous other municipalities that are currently actively pursuing a CPPS. Of the 7 municipalities listed here, 4 are municipal-wide, and they include Lake of Bays, Carleton Place, Gananoque, and Huntsville. 2 municipalities are using a CPPS to manage growth and intensification, and they are Brampton and Guelph. Of note, Guelph is the first municipality to use a CPPS to require affordable housing in exchange for additional height and density. There are many benefits of a CPPS. The first and foremost is that it has the ability to streamline and simplify the development approvals process, which shortens the traditional approvals time of 160 days or more down to 45 days. A CPPS can have a quicker approval time because public consultation is done upfront during the development of the CPP policies and bylaw. During this stage, public input help inform what are the permitted land uses, what are the appropriate development standards, and what variation is allowed to deviate from the development standards. In addition, the CPPS can incorporate urban design, landscaping, and heritage character into the bylaw, which gives teeth to some of these guidelines. A key feature of the CPPS is that it is one of the few Planning Act tools that can require, as a condition of approval, any studies or works that must be completed as part of the development application. In order to facilitate clear and transparent requirements, a municipality may require the applicant to attend a pre-consultation meeting. The CPPS can also require, as a condition of approval, certain community benefits in exchange for increased height and/or density. These community benefits can be flexible and can range from the provision of affordable housing to net ecological benefits or to cultural heritage resources. I'm going to pass the next slide on to Nagin. Is that right? Or no? Okay. My apologies. I'm continuing. We talked about the benefit of a CPPS, but despite the many benefits of a CPPS, it's not a perfect tool, and there are some potential impacts and risks to the community and to the planning division. With respect to the community, there may be reduced opportunity. I'm sorry, I think I skipped over a slide. No, is this yours? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. My apologies. I am a little bit out of order. Okay, thank you for your patience. So I did want to talk about the opportunities for a Brant County-made CPPS. And so as we develop the CPPS for the County of Brant, we can leverage a number of resources and opportunities. For instance, having a municipal-wide CPPS can streamline the application and approvals process in the county, and it can be administered consistently across the municipality. Another opportunity for the CPPS is the use of Brant County's existing comprehensive zoning bylaw. This can be a base for the proposed development standards in the CPP bylaw, but we will build upon it by modernizing and improving the land use permissions and development standards, in addition to ensuring that these provisions conform with the 2023 official plan. There is also opportunity to incorporate urban design elements and plans from other municipal-led initiatives. These elements can be codified into the CPP bylaw as part of the development requirements. In the CPPS framework, we can divide classes of development based on the degree of complexity or size, and we can assign delegated authority based on these classes, whereby the more straightforward applications can be delegated to staff for decision, and the more complex or high-impact applications can go to council for decision. Delegated authority helps reduce administrative burden and frees up valuable time of council to deal with higher priority matters. Lastly, there is opportunity to use the CPPS to require community benefits as a condition of approval of community planning permits. Since the community benefits must be proportional to increases in height and/or density, Brant County would need to determine if there is appetite to increase height and/or density in order to enable the collection of community benefits. I'll now pass it on to Nagin.
Thank you, Chan. So in addition to the benefits that CPPS offers, it also introduces new responsibilities and transitional challenges for the county, both to the community and the corporation, specifically to the planning division. I'm gonna highlight some of the key impacts today, but a more detailed version is in the staff report under potential impacts and risks. So in terms of impacts to the community, there may be reduced opportunity for public input on individual applications. The way CPPS is designed is that it front-load engagement so that there's an opportunity for public to provide input in the development of CPP bylaw process. So to make sure that their input is meaningfully integrated into the CPP bylaw itself, rather than postponing their input into the final process, like final stages of the approval process. We can also explore tiered notification system to make sure that public will still have the opportunity to receive notification on development applications and provide their comments. There's also a concern regarding difficulty understanding a new framework. There will be educational opportunities through the development of CPP bylaw for the public to both raise awareness on the new system and to build interest as we move into next steps of this project. There are also concerns around a fair distribution of benefits, community benefits across communities. The thing about the CPPS is that it can clearly define what those community benefits are and how they're obtained as part of the CPP permit. The county can also explore data-driven needs assessment to identify and allocate those community benefits more equitably across the communities. There is also no third-party appeal rights, which is to note as somehow similar to the current system for site plan controls and zoning bylaws. But I want to note that appeal rights still remain in place for applicants and public bodies. In terms of risks to the planning division and the corporation, staff may need significant training to administer new process and interpret the CPP bylaw. We can explore phased training program to make sure that guidelines are provided to different departments across the county to make sure that expectations are set early on, and also guidelines are provided specific to the needs of each department within the county. Delegation of approvals may also raise concerns about consistency and oversight. Again, CPPS can clearly define development thresholds and development standards, and council may still be the approval authority for those types of applications that are higher level in their community impact. There's also a need for systems to track outcomes and assess financial impacts of the new system. There's currently a divisional impact analysis undergoing, and we will be also looking at fees and cost recovery study in 2026 to better understand financial impacts of this new framework. In terms of the next steps, the trends and issues report that we're discussing tonight, along with those foundational assumptions and strategic questions, will help us to guide the second phase of this project, which is to draft CPP bylaw and have official plan amendment to enable those CPP enabling policies. The draft CPP bylaw and official plan amendment are anticipated to be presented to council in January 2026. There will be public consultation opportunities both before the draft CPP bylaw is available and after, and it will be through online opportunities as well as in person, such as like public open houses, meetings with community partners, key interest holders, to make sure that we gather input from all of the key interest holders in this project. And those input that we gather will help refine and revise the draft so that it's ready for finalization and adoption in mid-2026. Thank you very much, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council, it's a lot. Councillor Bell, you're first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I flip between this presentation and the one that Brandon has put in the documentation for item 12?
Of course.
You're okay with that, Brandon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, Brandon, I'm looking at page 6 of your first attachment, and it actually says, Scenario 1, John would like to expand his commercial business. That's the title. So, anyway, there are two lines there. One shows the current process, and the second one shows the proposed revised process. I'm struggling to understand how you can condense 160 days worth of effort into 45. What are you doing that allows you to make that change?
Through the mayor, so that is something that staff and we're well aware of that issue, and we're kind of struggling with that as well. What it will do, or what I'll say from our context, and then maybe I'll get Chun to speak to the context in some other municipalities. But what we'll be looking at doing is kind of easing ourselves into that process. So we recognize that it won't be 45 days right away, but we will be tracking that from the beginning, and that's the benefit of adopting this countywide. We'll be able to see and track those trends and make sure we're addressing that and changing that as it goes. So we do have some plans, obviously, to dive into that will change kind of internally. But like I say, it won't happen overnight, the 45 days, we recognize that. And maybe I'll ask Chun just to speak to.
I think, through the mayor, I think I need to hear what are the top 2 or 3 things you're going to do differently, and why will that make a difference from 160 days in the direction of 45, not necessarily to 45 straight.
Thank you for that question. And the unique thing about a CPPS is that it is a system that will have clear rules for the development standards as well as the criteria for any variation. And because of that clear transparency, the developers or applicants would know the rules upfront, exactly what is needed for any development application. In addition to that, a CPPS can require pre-consultation. As you are aware, Bill 185 took away that ability for municipality to mandate pre-consultation for a regular development application. But under the CPPS regime, you can require pre-consultation. And what that means is that you can clearly ask the developer and let them know upfront exactly what studies they need, what conditions they need to fulfill, what information is needed in order for the municipality to make a decision within that 45-day framework. And lastly, I would say that because the CPPS allows for delegated authority, it does help to shrink some of that administrative time frame. So you could do away with things like a council meeting, booking those meetings and having those reports ahead of time, because a delegated authority, if given to a staff, where the decisions can be pretty straightforward, and it's clear how to make that decision, then it does cut down some of that approvals time frame.
Thank you. I'm all for clear rules, but tell me I'm wrong, but aren't our rules clear today?
Through the chair to Councillor Bell. I think essentially what we're trying to do is, the CPPS is taking, the process you see there is a zoning process followed by a site plan process. Each is independent. And as we move forward, the zoning process loses a lot of time because we get the application, we have to circulate it for a large period of time. Then it goes to a council meeting for an information session. Then we have to wait again until we get a recommendation back. And then there's the appeal period process. And then before you jump back into the site plan, which takes time. So we're trying to condense them all into one. And we're condensing it to a faster process because we don't need to necessarily go to council for everything. So you're just dealing with a staff, so the process will move forward. You're not dealing with all these notices and time periods between meetings, et cetera. So everything is getting condensed into one process with less waste time in between where we're just waiting to solve or get back to council. So like Brandon mentioned, it's going to be tough to get to the 45, but the goal is that we will be shrinking it down to overlaying processes together, and then with staff delegation, we can go through that much faster and not lose some time that we're waiting in between processes. And that will help speed up the process for everyone.
Well, through the mayor, I'm all for delegated authority, and the more you can take from council, the better it is. But the big things still need to come to council. And to be honest, that's where we spend most of our time. I mean, my experience in this forum and the one before it was, many things go through on the nod, and you think, well, why are we even looking at them? You may as well just have dealt with them at staff level. But the ones that really count take a lot of time, and they take a lot of finessing through the system. And the idea that we might not have pre-consultation today, I find that very strange. I always thought we had pre-consultation because it's the sensible thing to do so that our developers know exactly what we need to see, or you need to see as staff, so that you can actually progress their applications. So I'm really struggling with some of this. It's a complex change, and I think we around this table are pretty fluent in this stuff, and I'm finding it really hard, to be perfectly honest, to understand, and particularly to find how you achieve the benefits. But one of the benefits that may come out of it is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, do we still need a committee of adjustment?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bell. Under this process, we would potentially not need the committee of adjustment. Most of those minor elements would be delegated to staff. As you noted, major changes would still come to council. And we'd still be trying to work to a slightly tighter process. It wouldn't be necessarily meet the 45 days, but we would still be looking for a very tight process in terms of turnaround to make the process work well. So yes, ultimately, we could be eliminating the committee of adjustment in terms of dealing with variance applications. If we're able to accommodate the sign bylaw and the fence bylaw together, we might be able to eliminate those from the committee of adjustment because we're tying them in. The question would be whether there is some committee that still has to deal with property standards, et cetera. So we would eliminate a lot of those functions from the committee of adjustment as a possibility, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll let others speak. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, Councillor Pierce, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So a couple of questions I have, and Councillor Bell's right. There's a ton of information in your report, Brandon, and I tried to go through it a couple of times just to try and get it. So there's a lot there, and I'm all for the delegating some of these decisions to staff as well. We've talked about that around this table many times. A couple of questions I have, and Councillor Bell kind of alluded to the one. We're going from 160 days to 45 days. Like that, I just don't want to set ourselves up for failure. So I'm wondering, that number 45, is that a number that we come up with, or is that a new standard? Are we going to be in essence held to that 45 days? We've had some things where we get ourselves into a no decision situation with an extended period of time. Now all of a sudden we're down to 45 days. Is that going to turn around and bite us, is where I'm looking, and like, where did that 45 days come from?
Through the mayor, so that 45 days is part of the legislation. So similar to how zoning and site plan, they have decision timelines. So the 45 days is the timeline specific for the community planning permits.
Okay, I appreciate that. So my other question is, and on the slide that stated who else has implemented the CPPS, there's a couple of townships there, the municipalities that appear to had specific locations first and then municipal-wide. What made the decision for us to go county-wide as opposed to, Paris or St. George, or like, what was the thought process behind right off the hop going county-wide?
Through the mayor, so I'll maybe let Chun speak to this a little bit more, but what I will say is that what we have seen or heard from our counterparts in other municipalities is that having two land use frameworks working at the same time, so some part of the municipality is dealing with site plan and zoning, and some part is dealing with CPPS, is far more confusing than having a whole system over top.
Okay, that makes sense. I appreciate that answer. And one last one on the page, that what comes next? I think phase 2, is that a typo? That should be October to January 2026.
That is a typo, yes, as much as I would wish it was last year.
I was going to say, because did we miss something? Maybe that was the 45 days and we missed it. Who knows, right? But anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Oakley, you're next.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just I guess sort of wrap my head around where some of the time savings could come from, if you just entertain me in I suppose a bit of a hypothetical here. So the way that this process could possibly speed things up is if development applications come in that fulfill our permitting process and our official plan to the letter, it would be able to go through an expedited process versus something that requires some sort of exception. So sort of where I'm going with this is, I think we've talked around this council table before, almost everything that comes forward in front of us, including things that we have staff approval, have some sort of, variance in terms of setbacks or parking or whatever else. And we've asked ourselves around this question, or around this table, what's the point of having these bylaws people constantly ask for exceptions. Would you say one of the potential benefits here being that if I was a developer, I wanted to come propose a development, with the CPPS system, if I fulfill everything to the letter, I'd have an expedited process versus if I wanted all those different variations, that may get us to incentivize developers to follow everything to the letter versus now you're going through the same process, whether you're asking for everything we're following by the letter, or I might as well ask for my exceptions, if that rambling train of thought made sense.
Through the mayor, yeah, so what I'll say to that is maybe two pieces. So first of all, we'll be modernizing those performance standards. So that will hopefully reduce the asks for variations. But the other part of it will be that there is a variation component baked into a CPPS. And it will allow variations within a certain threshold because we recognize they will still meet the objectives of the official plan and the CPP to happen with that delegated authority. So that will also speed up the process. So there's two kind of pieces there.
Okay, and just to sort of follow on that train of thought, so this could potentially incentivize developers to be more willing to comply with our standards because there is then a time incentive for them because they get to move through quicker.
Through the mayor, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Miller, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Brandon. Brandon, I don't like recommendations that come forward and ask us to approve them, and we don't know the cost. And I know it's been talked about in the report. So it sounds like we're going to save some money at the staff level. That's what it sounds like. And there's a cost to implement this. I'm guessing the implementation costs come first, and then later on we may have some savings. Will there be a request or an ask in the upcoming budget for this?
Through the mayor. So just to specify, we're not asking for an approval of anything this evening. It's just an endorsement of some of these foundational assumptions. And the reason we're asking for those is because we need those in order to make the assumptions about costing. So we're doing some of that based on the recommendations of other municipalities. And what that will do will then limit our scope to provide you with the costing analysis. If we looked at it at such a high level without those foundational assumptions, the cost savings wouldn't be very clear. There would be a lot of variation in it. So just to clarify that piece, but so there will be a component that will come forward in the 2026 budget, and that will be specific to community benefits. So what we see as a bonus for us with that, to add some extra money to this budget, to study that. What that will do, we'll look at the cost, the proportional cost of the benefits we would ask. So for example, affordable housing. So if someone wants to go beyond the standards of the CPPS, they could potentially do that if they're providing X number of affordable housing units. We don't know what X is. We don't know what that number is. So that extra money that will come through the budget ask will help us do a study to inform that so that we have a defensible number to say, okay, well, we know that the number is 3 and we can ask for that, and we've done the study to support that. So that's where the extra money will be coming forward through the budget, but everything else will be covered under the budget that's previously been approved for this project.
Okay, we shall see. Thank you.
Actually, through the mayor to Councilor Miller, just further to that, part of the financial analysis is actually staff trying to understand the changes in the department and what it means. When you start moving away from the current process of zoning and site plan and minor variances and how we budget for them, we put them in the revenue side, how that's going to change in terms of what the revenues have to look like in the new budgeting system. So that's where we're going to see some financial implications. We're trying to understand what those implications are internally, more so than coming to council for an ask for something. It's more like, what does it mean that we have to change our budgeting analysis and what our revenue lines will look like next year, mid-year when this starts to change. So they're doing analysis along those lines, which is more internalized than coming to council to say we need more money for anything. It's just understanding how those changes will take place. So budget line items for us to give to you in the future.
Councillor Coleman, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Brandon. I'm all about the change, and I support reducing the timeline. But I'm a little concerned that there's not that many municipalities have bid into this yet. And that's what bothers me, that we've only got 7 or 8. And how many municipalities in the province of Ontario?
400.
Exactly. So if you were telling me that we've got 200 other municipalities looking at this system, I would be a little bit more confident, but I'm not confident in the way it is right now. Thank you.
Counselor Oakley, you're next.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just the last conversation with Councilor Miller, or last question from Councilor Miller kind of piqued a thought. Again, through to Jeremy, you said you'd have to work on these sort of assumptions, but I'm presuming, even though we're harmonizing these processes, someone who's looking for something that would be right now the equivalent of a minor variance would not pay as much as someone who's looking for an OPA. Just, I wanted to clarify that we're not going to be harmonizing the costs regardless of the level of work involved.
Through the mayor to Councilor Oakley, so yeah, that's part of the analysis they're gonna look at and tell us how to break down. They could be, the way that we're gonna look at is the ones that just meet, those that need some minor approvals, and those who need to come to council, so there'll be different variations, so the costing will probably break down that way somehow. We just don't know what that's gonna look like yet. They're gonna do that analysis for us, so we understand what the staff time is associated to the ones that need more time and effort, because they might be coming to council and need extra costs associated with that, for example. So they're gonna break that down for us to help understand the financial implications. Realizing we're now taking staff time, which usually took 160 days, and we're bringing it down to a very condensed period of time. They're spending more time right on an application versus spreading it out, right? So same amount of time is probably taking place, it's just how it crunches out. So yeah, that's just how they're gonna break that down for us, is they're gonna help us and analyze that so we can make sure we understand, so we can put the budget numbers to you properly in the future.
Okay,
Or more
thank you.
appropriately
Thank you.
in our revenue lines, yeah.
Counselor McAlpine.
I guess one of my biggest concerns is the public consultation process and how that's going to work out, because already we face a lot of the times that people don't feel they're consulted enough when we do on these projects. And so is the public consultation then going to be put on the onus of the person bringing forward the application to be done before he hands in the complete application, or how do you view that?
Through the mayor, so that is still to be decided, but the conversation we've had previously with council with respect to what we've called the alternative consultation measures, and you'll see a bit of that come forward next month with the OPA that we're working on. That is the intention, and it is already baked into our official plan that there is a level of public input that needs to be collected to inform the actual application, because that's when the changes can be made, right? That's the point of kind of the meaningful input. So that is the direction we're still intending to take with this project.
Thank you.
Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following on from Councillor McAlpine's question, we spend a lot of time talking about the process of getting public input, and we've moved around a bit in the years I've been on council, and we've sort of landed back to having 2 goes at getting public input. I'm a little troubled that what I see on your page 6 of your report, in the CPPS process, the word public input doesn't feature at all. And then I also heard there's a lack of third-party appeal. So it seems to me that you're trying to push the boundary towards favouring the person making the application, whether it's an individual or a developer. Is that a correct interpretation?
Through the mayor, I would argue that it is not, and the reason that is because, so I'll start with the third-party appeals. That is set by the province, and that the third-party appeals do not apply to the processes that we currently have as well. So that would be staying the same. The CPPS itself does not require public input on applications, and what we know as staff is that is not best practice in planning. And so what we would be doing is, as I kind of said with Councillor McAlpine's question, is front-ending those requirements. We'd be baking them into our CPP bylaw, requiring various levels of public input, and requiring that before the application is made. So we'd be going above and beyond the requirements or the kind of minimum standards of what the province has set for a CPP, which is not to include public input. That's an option. But we would be making sure that is addressed, and we do include that in our process.
So if I may, Mr. Mayor, so you're envisaging that the first step of having for information on a project that gets wound up into the initial application, Are you suggesting that we don't have the second step, which is public input prior to us making a decision as council?
Through the mayor, what we would do is create multiple touch points for the public to provide input, and it would be dependent on the threshold of the development, so the impact of the development. So if there is still the opportunity, if it's a larger impact development, it's coming to council for approval, there would be that portion that's required for public input as part of the application, and then we could require a public meeting, and then we could have people come in for the meeting for council to make the decision as well. So we can tweak that and make that kind of work based on the different thresholds of the impact of the developments themselves.
I'm struggling a little bit with the idea that we wouldn't have sufficient public information sessions. We have to pay regard to the credibility and the integrity of us as a council and the decisions we make. And if we do not take into account public input at the right point in time, I think our decision-making will be challenged. I certainly would feel it challenged. I don't know whether my colleagues would feel the same.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. Are there any other comments from council? I know we're only, we're only voting to receive this delegation as information. It's a lot, and when we get to the next piece of 12.1, you'll see that there's a lot more than a lot coming up right after this. So if there's no other questions from council, I'd call the vote just to receive the delegation from Dylan as information. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And then we'll move right on to the one that we put right behind this, which is 12.1. And Brandon, you're going to speak to this. This is the entire report. So it's a lot. And it's only here for to receive his information too. We don't expect you to have read it all. And
So through the mayor, there is a recommendation with this report, and this is what I was speaking to previously. It was just about endorsement. If there are any points of clarification that any councilors would like, I'm happy to address those now as well. But maybe what I will say is that there's still a lot to be determined in this process, and there will be a lot of additional touch points with council, with the public, to collect feedback on the project. I recognize specifically to what Councillor Coleman is saying about us being one of the first municipalities to kind of dive into this a bit more fulsomely. The list of other ones that have tried it is not long, admittedly, but they've seen a lot of success with their processes so far. And some of that is outlined as well in the Trends and Issues report that Dylan's put together. So what I will say is that this is moving forward with this will definitely be an opportunity to put Brant kind of in the front with respect to kind of the land use planning framework that we have. It's an opportunity for us to make this more of a made in Brant solution. We see how the province has changed things with the planning framework over and over in the last couple of years. Things have changed very quickly. The CPPS itself and the framework around that in the Planning Act has not changed to that same degree by any means. So there is a sense of stability in it as well. And it, like I say, it provides us with this kind of made in Brant solution, the opportunity to add some community benefits and make sure that when we modernize the framework, which we would need to do anyways, we'd have to update our zoning bylaw, we'd have to update our site plan control bylaw. So this provides a more fulsome opportunity to do that and receive tangible community benefits for it as well. So I'll maybe just provide that as the summary, and if there's any other questions, I'm happy to address those.
thank you. Let's get it on the floor first, please, so we can talk about it. Councillor Bell and Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bell, you have a question?
Yeah, this is a three-part recommendation, as Brandon said. First part, I have no problem with receiving it for information. But I'm struggling with these foundational assumptions and strategic questions. I think I certainly need, and maybe my colleagues don't, but I certainly do, need to understand more how this would play out. I would like to see 2 or 3 examples of things that have come through council, through the planning process that we followed to date, and how they would have looked differently had we gone through this new process. And there you'd be able to isolate and show how the new process would make changes and make differences. And I think it would be inappropriate then to go and direct you to draft a bylaw if we don't really fully understand the benefits of what you're proposing and buy into them yet. So that I would actually make a suggestion, Mr. Mayor, that we accept the first item and defer the other two until we get more information as council. I feel really lacking in sufficient education to say yes to these second two recommendations.
Jeremy?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bell, I understand the reservations and the questions. It is a new change and a new variation we're going with. And as Brandon outlined, there's some great opportunities here, some that he didn't even notice, such as we can deal with urban design. We can require the pre-consultation, which is not required today under the Planning Act. So there gives some opportunities there that we can benefit and apply this and make it work. So endorsing some of these understandings of just saying, we just endorse that they're there and we're gonna work through them, I think is what we're looking for. What staff's trying to get to is making it very clear there is some things here we're gonna need direction on, and there's opportunity to go through this and work these out with the community and council. We wanna be very clear about those elements being there. We're not hiding them at all. So I would not suggest that we have to push them aside at the moment, or just not, we could bring more as we move forward the process. But this is just the first initial step to introduce all this to council and get this door open and move forward to some public consultation as we go forward. So I think that's what we're looking for, is like, let us keep moving through the process and get that feedback from council and the community so we can keep looking at opportunities, like you said, how do we engage the public through the process and how do we deal with some of these fundamental issues and play them out as we move forward before we bring a final report to council next year, mid-next year type thing.
Okay, so Councillor Bell has a recommendation. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Pierce, and Councillor Bell wants them to voted on individually. And he's got a seconder in Councillor Pierce. Councillor House.
Through the mayor, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the process here a little bit. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with Councillor Bell's approach, but I'm also trying to be respectful of what I think staff is trying to achieve. And just to clarify, if we were to approve as it's written, all three, this opens the door for staff to continue on this, but it doesn't necessarily have us married to the concept. That there are lots of opportunities still ahead for us to evaluate the benefits of this, and if we decide along the lines we really don't like this, there's still an opportunity for us to kill it. Is that true?
I believe that's true.
Through the mayor to Councillor House, you could, then you're going to be spending money to some extent on something and then have us backtrack a little bit because we have to replace the zoning bylaw somehow. So right now our zoning bylaw, as Brandon mentioned, doesn't match our official plan. So under the Planning Act, we're required to bring our zoning bylaw into conformity within a few years of completing our official plan. So this is the step. That's what we're doing, is saying, this is the step we've moved down, we budgeted for this, we've kind of moved down this line of saying, instead of a zoning bylaw, we're moving down the community planning permit system, which incorporates zoning and site plan together and tries to create a process that's faster for processing. So I wouldn't say I'd like to tell you that we're gonna move backwards and drop the community planning permit system, that we would go backwards as a recommendation. I don't think that's the suggestion here. The suggestion here is to allow us to proceed forward, and there's some fundamental issues here. There's some foundations that have to be wrestled with as we proceed, and that have to be finalized as we proceed before the end of the process. So Brandon and his team are trying to bring them forward as these fundamental questions and foundations that have to give some direct, we'll be looking for some direction over time.
Follow-up, Councillor House?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so, I'm sensing there isn't complete buy-in around the table on all of this. But if we were to approve it as it's written, our staff have confidence that there would be an opportunity as we go through forward steps to build the confidence that isn't necessarily here now.
I'm sure we can continue to do our best to bring more back and help and assist council with whatever means necessary. Yes, we will try, proceed, yes. And that's what the goal is here, moving through this process. Tonight's process is to introduce this as we move forward to the public consultation engagement too. So this is just the beginning. We're in the very beginnings of the process. So this, obviously being new, is going to be a learning process for everyone. But like I said, we also going to move to the community to get their feedback. An entirety of a bylaw that's coming forward that's going to be presented as that, like a zoning of what things look like, what's going to go in it, but also the process that goes with it. So we're letting everyone give feedback, like you suggest, even the community should give feedback to this process and how things are going and what their suggestions would be. So that's what we're suggesting, but there's some fundamental questions that people should be aware of and understand how that might play out, like the community engagement side, and what does this mean? What do the community benefits really mean in that sense? And we would do some analysis on that community benefits a bit further on to help with us making those decisions. But the goal here is to keep moving through the process, understanding that this exists. We understand we're going to solve these as we move forward with these foundational issues.
Councillor Oakley, we're going to hear from you, and then we're going to call a vote.
Sorry, yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to clarify, are we talking just about the motion to defer at this moment? Or
Right now, we were having conversation on Councillor Bell's motion to receive as information and defer the second and third paragraph.
Okay, just on that, and then I'm not going to support the motion to defer because I believe we can address this evening.
Or you're not going to support Councillor Bell? Okay, well, let's wait. You can do that with your hand when we vote. Okay? Any other comments before we call the vote? People online, no questions? We're good? Okay, what's on the floor, Councillor Bell is suggesting we receive this report as information and defer the second and third paragraph until another time when Councillor Bell feels more comfortable about knowing what's in the report moving forward. He has a seconder, Councillor Bell?
I mean, this might be the right answer, but I'm not convinced today that it's the right answer. And I think I haven't heard the convincing case for making this step. And if I take Councillor Coleman's comment, do we want to be number 8 out of 444 in this process? Possibly not. So it has to be an overwhelming benefit for us to make that step. It's a small community. So if in the next months, Brandon and his team can bring forward examples which really reinforce the benefits of what you're proposing, I can be supportive, but right now I cannot.
So Councillor Bell is keeping it on the table, and it's been seconded. We're going to call the vote. All those in favor of supporting Councillor Bell? Everyone that's opposed? And it fails. So we're going to go back to the staff recommendation of 1, 2, and 3. Everyone's clear? Councillor Miller?
Moved?
It's moved. Isn't it, Spencer? Okay, it was originally, but because we've had conversation about another motion, we should put it on the floor again. Councillor Miller and Councillor Oakley. Councillor Bell.
I presume, therefore, Mr. Mayor, we can vote on them individually, line by line.
Okay. I thought we just, no, we didn't. Okay, I'm sorry, you're right. You wanted to table them. Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. I just wanted to comment on the report. So I'm in favor of the recommendation before us this evening. Just a couple thoughts I had on it. I think this is an opportunity for us to, I think we've been struggling this term of council, and many council have been struggling with sort of how we get the types of housing development that we want to see. Certainly, we haven't seen an influx of affordable housing as of yet, or even attainable housing. And I think this is a way for us to be able to formalize and get that through the community planning permit system. Further, I've been doing lots of research as it relates, this is largely as it relates to transportation construction, but I think it fits here as well. Looking at other jurisdictions on why it takes us so long to get things built here in Canada and why it's so much more expensive versus other jurisdictions. And one of the things sort of identified is sort of the administrative burden, which I think this does a lot to address. It simplifies the process. I think it makes the process more straightforward, easier for folks to be able to look at our policies, identify if what they want to do fits within it, and know that they have some certainty of, at the end of the day, getting an approval if they follow all of our rules, which I think right now our current system does not provide. So I think overall this creates a lot of clarity. Or potentially creates a lot of clarity for both developers, the community, for landowners, for council, to be able to ensure that we all have a good understanding of what our policies are asking for.
Councillor McAlpine.
So just to get my head around this, so basically what we're doing is we're condensing things so that we're doing just different stages of the process in parallel. So that brings it down from that 180 to the 45. We're requiring a complete application at the beginning of the process. So we already do that. I believe that we require a complete application before we receive it, as opposed to a few years ago where people could just put anything in it as long as they check the boxes off. So there's a process starting with the pre-consultation where there's back and forth with these groups. So it could take a year for them of going back and forth before we actually do the final review. And that's the final review, in a sense, is that last 45 days, right? So, because I don't think it would necessarily speed up the process for a lot of people unless they are very in-depth in how they do build a house or whatever they're doing. But anyway, I'm in favor of going forward with what you're proposing at the end.
Okay, so what we've got on the floor is we're going to vote for the three pieces individually. And Spencer is going to read out the first one, which I believe is just to receive his information. But Spencer, if you want to read what we're voting on, please.
Through your worship, the first clause is as follows. That report RPT-036325 regarding the development of a countywide community planning permit system be received as information.
Everyone's clear? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now we're going to vote on the second paragraph.
Through your worship, the second clause is that the foundational assumptions and strategic questions identified by report RPT-0363-25 and its attachments be endorsed as the basis and directions to develop the community planning permit system.
Everyone's clear? All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. Thank you. We'll go to the third paragraph, please, Spencer.
Through your worship, the third and final clause is that staff be directed to draft a CPP bylaw and official plan amendment to be released to collect public and stakeholder feedback and be presented to council for further direction.
Everybody's clear? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brandon. You've given us a lot to read this week. Number 6 is the adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor House that the meeting minutes of the County of Brant Council meeting of September 9th, 2025 be approved.
Any questions on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor to receive? Opposed and carried. Any business arising from those minutes? No. Consent items, we have none. Consent items to be received, we have none. We're going to go to number 9 now. which is a public hearing, and I'm going to declare this public meeting open, which means anyone can speak to this as we're going. This is, the first one we're going to do is 20 to 44 Muir Road. And Lauren's going to present that.
Thank you. I'll be presenting zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1625LG submitted by GSP Group on behalf of Stubby's Precast, owners of lands located at 20 to 44 Muir Road South. This application is to be received for information at this time. The subject lands are located east of Muir Road South and south of 9th Concession Road, with a portion of the lands being within the New Durham settlement area. These subject lands are part of an industrial campus comprised of multiple parcels of lands, each with separate entrances and buildings. This application is specific to 20 to 44 Muir Road South. These subject lands have a frontage of approximately 1,260 meters along Muir Road South and approximately 600 meters along 9th Concession Road. The subject lands have an area of approximately 68.17 hectares. The surrounding land uses consist of agricultural to the north, east, and west, with residential and industrial located to the south. The subject lands contain the Simons-Hopkins Municipal Drain. Bylaw 13024 was approved by Council December 17th, 2024, which proposed a realignment to the municipal drain, and the drain has since been realigned in accordance with the engineer's report. The subject lands are designated as general employment, agriculture, and natural heritage system. The lands to be rezoned are within the New Durham settlement area. The New Durham settlement area was expanded through the municipal comprehensive review for the new County of Brant official plan. The new 2023 official plan was adopted by the County of Brant Council on May 30th, 2024, and approved by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing October 18th, 2024. The subject lands are zoned as special exception agricultural employment, AE 29, agriculture, and natural heritage. Zoning bylaw amendment application at ZBA 1625 LG proposes to rezone a portion of the subject lands from special exception agricultural employment, agriculture, and natural heritage to special exception light industrial and natural heritage vegetation protection zone. The existing industrial use has encroached onto the north parcel, so the zoning bylaw amendment is seeking to correct this by permitting the use through the site-specific zoning bylaw amendments. The natural heritage zoning, which recognized the previous drain alignment, is proposed to be rezoned to natural heritage vegetation protection zone. The table provides a breakdown of permitted uses within the light industrial zone, M2, the existing permitted uses, and the proposed uses. The applicants are proposing to limit the permitted light industrial M2 uses to only uses that are associated with the existing industrial facility. The primary use will be manufacturing and fabricating of metal and concrete products, with a warehouse wholesale establishment, open storage, the parking, storing, and servicing of tractor trailers, and a support office or business office, all being permitted accessory to the primary use. The applicants are proposing to add parking, storing, and servicing of tractor trailers as an accessory use. Due to the nature of the existing industrial operation, this use allows them to use their own vehicles to transport their concrete products. This table provides a breakdown of the zone provisions within the light industrial zone, the existing zone provisions at 20 to 44 Muir Road South, and the proposed zone provisions. The applicants are proposing to bring the zone provisions into conformity with the M2 zoning, as the industrial campus is located on multiple parcels. Reducing the setbacks to reflect the light industrial requirements allows the industrial uses to be located closer to one another, while ensuring the uses in future expansion are located further from the existing residential along Harley Road. There are specific provisions which are not proposed to be brought into conformity. This includes the street setback to Muir Road South, A street setback of 75 meters for office and parking uses is being proposed. This is consistent with the current AE 29 zoning, and a setback of 175 meters for all other uses is being proposed. This is a decrease from the existing 260-meter setback for all other uses within the existing AE 29 zoning. As well, the maximum lot coverage for buildings of 15% is being proposed. This is an increase from the current 10% lot coverage for buildings within the AE 29 zone. It is also a reduction for the maximum lot coverage permitted within the M2 zone, which is 60%. The reduced coverage is being proposed to ensure compatibility with the surrounding rural area and to prevent the overdevelopment of the site. All setbacks are intended to be from the property lines, and work related to the employment use are to remain within the general employment designation and settlement area. Some key considerations: a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment identified that there are 2 archaeological areas. Both areas and 20-meter buffers are proposed to be rezoned from agriculture to open space to further protect the areas and prohibit development in the future. The agricultural impact assessment that was submitted as part of the settlement area boundary expansion identified MDS deficiencies. The MDS first needs to be addressed at the official plan level, so this will be addressed through the site-specific policy area, ND1. Portions of the site will be rezoned from agriculture to natural heritage vegetation protection zone to establish buffers between the proposed use and the existing natural heritage features. The development is considered a Class 3 industrial use. The minimum separation distance between Class 3 industrial uses and sensitive uses is 300 meters. The future expansion is proposed to be located greater than 300 meters from existing residential uses, and detailed technical review would be completed as part of a future site plan control application. Notice of this application was posted on September 23rd, and notices were hand-delivered to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands on September 29th. Indigenous engagement is a requirement of a complete application. As part of the initial consultation with Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the zoning bylaw amendment application was flagged for review, and the review must be completed with comments sufficiently addressed in advance of the application moving forward for recommendation. One comment of concern was received as part of the public circulation. The comments have been included for council's review. The concerns are regarding whether the use is considered light industrial, the proximity to existing residential dwellings, the impact of the expansion on residential water quality and quantity, increased noise, dust, and light pollution from the industrial expansion. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. What we're going to do now is we're going to hear from Brandon Flewelling, the agent for the application. Then we'll open it up to council for questions, and then to the public for concerns or questions. Just your name and your address for the clerk, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Brandon Flewelling. I'm from GSP Group. Address is 72 Victoria Street South in Kitchener. I'm joined tonight as well by Mike Gore from Stubbies. We're going to sort of tag team our presentation here, and I'll pass the mic to Mike and then carry on.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and rest of council. Let's do a quick presentation. Figured maybe some of you know about Stubbies, but I figured just quickly run through it. Stubbies started in the town of New Durham in 1982, primarily in the agricultural precast product. And now we currently work in all sectors across from the country, in the province of Ontario. And the one main sector is the residential sector. And just for kind of a fact, is last year alone, we supplied precast or ready mix for about 5,000 residential units or houses across Ontario. And Stubbies currently employs about 925 employees across the province, with about 80% of them being based here in New Durham. And then the other thing is about 3 years ago, we came up with a fast-track building system. And just to give a little bit more clarity on that, essentially what we're trying to do is modularize the design of construction, but still do conventionally. And what we've really seen is that cuts down the the initial timeline for drawings and stuff like that to get it quicker to market. And then our proposed plan here is, you can see down to the right is essentially a majority of our existing operations. And then the piece that's highlighted in red is what we're proposing to rezone from agriculture to industrial, which would follow the official plan. And the reasons why we kind of need this is we need additional yard storage, which if I go back, you can kind of see it's mostly what it is, yard storage and the stormwater management pond. Is for, we lost a bunch of yard due to recent plant and warehouse expansions. These plant expansions were necessary to meet the increased demand in the housing market. And over the next 2 to 3 years, we feel that we probably, on this property, add another 100 employees, which will span from the office staff, our installation teams, and logistics personnel to help with the growing demand. I'll hand it back over to Brandon.
Thanks, Mike. And I think as explained by Lauren, the purpose of the application tonight is really to implement the official plan, which was approved in 2023. So the settlement areas were expanded, the general employment designation was placed on this property, and now the zoning bylaw is implementing that on a site-specific basis. The proposed zoning bylaw does limit the use of, or the overall permitted uses within the employment zone to specifically match how the property is used and intended to be used by Stubbies. So there's the new industrial zoning, and then as well as the recommendation for some natural heritage zoning limits to protect the existing water course and archaeological areas. In support of the application, we had submitted a planning justification report, agricultural impact assessment, archaeological impact assessment, as well as a traffic impact study. The reason, as Mike had said, it's all coming forward now is that working towards site plan approval for an expansion of the operations on this site, and obviously need to have the right zoning rules in place so that a proper site plan can then be approved. So Mike and I are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Does council have any questions before I open it up to the floor? Councilor Miller, you're first.
A few questions, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. To Brandon, Mr. Flewell, can you go back to that map you had? Oops.
No. I can close the map. There we go.
That's the one. Now, if I understand you correctly, all the work that you're looking for this application is all happening along the 9th concession, is that right? Or is there other stuff going on in there?
Yeah, for basically the rezoning, majority of it is up against the 9th. The only other small portion would be is kind of where we have an existing employee parking lot and proposing a new septic bed, just essentially doing housekeeping item to get it all in line with what we're currently doing there.
Okay. With this new expansion, do you know how much additional water you would be using?
From what we're currently using, probably nothing.
Okay.
So like I said, it's all due to the last plant expansions. We basically took yard storage away for the plant expansions. Now we need it back.
Okay. I was wondering if I could ask the planner a couple of questions. And I'm going to your one, you have the application details where you break it down as far as the proposed. I wonder if you could get that map up because I am not clear on a lot of the things here. It says, wait till you get up. Yeah, no, the one has zone provisions, light industrial, that's.
Through the chair, is this correct? So this is the official plan and the zoning, which is currently. And then for application details, so this would be potential schedule. So it shows,
Can we go forward one more, Lauren? Forward? The other forward? That's it, there. So proposed, it has, where are we here? It has rear yard setback, light industrial, M2 is 10 meters. A rear yard setback is 8 meters. The existing is 55 meters, and they're proposing to go to 8 meters. When I look at that, can you tell me where the rear yard is in this whole?
yes, so through the chair, the frontage is actually onto Muir Road South. So the rear yard would have previously been the rear yard backing onto agricultural land. So there was a much greater setback.
Okay, yeah. So sorry, you said Muir Road is the front?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be going to the east side. Okay, yeah, don't understand a lot of that. Okay, so, and then the next question I had was, as far as setback to residential zones. The residential zone for light industrial M2 is 10 meters. The proposal is 10 meters. When I look at that, how close is the nearest residence? Would they all be in the New Durham area?
Through the chair, so the nearest residence would be towards the south, all along Harley Road. There's also additional D6 guidelines, which have greater setback requirements. So with the D6 guidelines, they would be classified as a Class 3 industrial facility, and that's required to have a 300-meter setback distance.
Okay, I understood the first sentence, and I'll go with that. If you're looking at setback to residential zone 10 meters, but doesn't that also include, isn't the natural heritage area more than 10 meters in this case?
Chair, that's correct. So the natural heritage zone is also providing a bit of an additional buffer as well from the industrial use.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay, thank you. And then to the presenters, thank you, Lauren. When I look at Stubbies, how do you say it, Stubbies or Stubbies? Because I've heard it both.
Stubbies.
Stubbies, yeah, okay, I got it, Stubbies. I look at Stubbies over the years. You said you started in 1982. I've been watching you guys grow, and I find with Stubbies, where there's a will, there's a way, if that makes sense. You guys looked at putting in, you needed extra hydro, but it was really costly, so you put in a natural gas generator to generate hydro. About a dozen years ago, you wanted to expand. We couldn't expand because it was all ag lands around you, and you needed employment land. So, working with David Johnson at the time, you switched out some land in Burford with Roger Davis and made it happen, right? I've been in your head office. You guys had tours, beautiful head office, lots of amenities. You have workers living quarters nearby, close proximity, to attract and retain workers. All I'm saying is Stubby seems to get things done, right? When you want to get it done, you get it done. What I would like to see, though, is not the Stubbies of 15 years ago. Stubbies is a big company today. And I'd like to see the new Stubbies get along better with the neighbors. And I say that because we have a letter tonight. We have a letter in a package, and I've heard from other people, they are concerned about the dust. They're concerned about the noise. They're concerned about the lights. Obviously, they're concerned about the trucks. I don't know what you can do about that. What I'm asking is maybe Stubbies could use that where there's a will, there's a way, and not just be a good neighbor to the people in New Durham, but be the best neighbor you could be, because I think you guys have the potential. So I'm encouraging you to do that tonight. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions to the presenter and or the applicant? No? This is not a hockey game or a baseball diamond. I have to say that. I have to tell you, you can't clap and you can't boo, you can't throw things at me. I have to tell you that. Any other questions to the presenter and to the applicant? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to the floor. If anyone wants to speak to or against this application, come forward to the podium, and you've got 10 minutes. Come on. This is your moment. No? Okay, I'm going to ask for, oh, there you go. And again, if you could just tell us your name and your address, please, for the clerk.
My name's Ed Ianson. I live at 366 Hurley Road, and I just got a few issues. It's just common sense. Like, this is an urban sprawl. This is industrial commercial sprawl. I bought it in a hamlet, not like an industrial park. I can't imagine what the trucks are going to sound like, the backup beepers, the slamming tailgates. I don't want to live in a gravel pit kind of background. I work in it. Don't really got a whole lot to say, except for it's just common sense. This is a nice little community. It's not commercial. Anyway, thank you.
Is there anyone that has any questions to the speaker? No? Someone else want to come up?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. My name is Gerard Vervoren, and I live on Harding Road 336. And Stubby is on the west side of my farm. I have a dairy farm together with my wife and 2 sons. And Stubby have plans to build a big factory. And I was a little bit worried what that is an impact on my farm. And not about dust, noise, light of everything. But I have 30 acres close by Stubby. That is the only place for me to expand my farm. I went last week or 10 days ago here to the council, to the planners. I asked him, how far have Stubby to go from my place? How far have I to stay from Stubby? They don't give me an answer. My question is, how far is that?
Staff have an answer?
Without knowing numbers of livestock and the manure storage, it's hard to give an answer. We'd have to run a calculation. So we don't have that answer immediately in front of us. We'd have to run a calculation to verify that number and setback.
Okay. And how far has Stubby done to stay from my place? Stubby have no livestock.
Through the mayor to the delegation. They can go up to their property line subject to meeting the zoning requirements that we'll be looking at through this process, this application and the next one. Actually, the next one is more applicable to his property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions to the presenter? So he got in under my first ask. I'm going to ask for the second time. Does anyone want to speak to or against this application? And I'm going to ask for the third time. Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? There you go. And again, if you could just let us know your name, please, and your address for the clerk, that would be great.
It's Ellie St. George, 345 Harley Road.
Thank you.
My concern is going to be the impact on the value of my property. I'm going to be sitting directly across from, on Harley Road, where you're planning on putting this big storage facility. If I ever wanted to sell my property, someone's going to drive by and say, oh, what a nice property, and look across the road and see this big cement storage facility, parking lots, noise, dust. How is that going to benefit me? It's not. It's going to devalue my property and everyone else's property in the area. Like, what are you doing for me? Nothing. And what about the creek that runs through there? Are you protecting that? The big bush that's in behind there, is that going to be all cut down and made into a big parking lot? Like, where's the environmental assessment? Is there one even being done? That's my concerns.
Okay. Does the presenter want to come up and address those questions? Do you want to come up and let us know whether you've done a study on, and thank you for your questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the questions. Part of, there's another application to follow immediately after this one for another portion of the property. In support of that application, an environmental impact study was done. It's identified the creek and the natural areas, and they are all to be protected. The actual development on the property, on either piece, either this application or the one to come next, will go through a full site plan review process with county staff. Things like, berms and buffers around the edge of the properties will be looked at and commented on by staff. So all of that work goes into the site plan approval process. This is step one. The next step before anything gets built and finalized is a site plan approval. So I know staff has been taking notes, and those are the types of things that really get addressed at the site plan stage. So, but to answer the question, yes, an environmental impact study was done, and there are no changes proposed to the creek, and there's a buffer area provided, and the limits of development stay outside of that natural heritage area.
Thank you. I was just about finished my third ask. If there's anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application, could you come now before I declare the meeting closed? So you have a minute? No? Okay. Seeing that there's no other speakers in the room, I would like to close the part of the public meeting, and I'm going to seek a motion and a seconder to get it on the floor. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Oakley. We have it on the floor. Is there any other discussion? Councillor Miller?
Just one question, and maybe we could discuss it the next one, but I was wondering if maybe Jeremy could talk about MDS. We know about MDS in residences. Does MDS apply to industry or employment lands?
Jeremy?
Through the mayor to Councillor Miller. So MDS does apply to residential units in the countryside, for example, and MDS applies to a settlement boundary. Okay, so we assume there's sensitive land uses. Off the top of my head, I'd have to recall whether it applies specifically to industrial areas within the settlement boundary. I'd have to verify that. There will be minimum distance requirements. When you calculate MDS, there will be setbacks to a property line that come out of that, based on the type of livestock and numbers. There's minimums in the zoning bylaw, but the MDS will also come with a standard setback to a property line for a certain type of land use, regardless of what it is. So we'd run those numbers for somebody. If the landowner wanted to come in and or just email us a list of numbers, we could do a quick calculation to give an estimate and understand the implications.
And maybe when the full report comes, we could get maybe a blurb about that, because I don't know, and so
The MDS requirements, just to realize, to a settlement boundary is double the distance of a house in the resident out in the countryside. So there's a double distance. So that's why we have to run the numbers and calculate it. And we could give that information to the landowner if they have the numbers to work with. So,
thank you.
Councillor Kyle, you're next.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff, my comments are similar to Councillor Miller's and with respect to the MDS. So for this one, as well as the application we're going to see next, it kind of applies to both, but I would like to see staff runs the numbers on the livestock facilities that are surrounding, because just having gone through that process myself, I know that there's the MDS going the one way, but there's the MDS going the other way, and it would be good for those livestock producers to know what their distance is that they would be restricted to. I've talked to the gentleman who sent the letter I think Spencer sent it to me by email. I think you guys have a hard copy of it for the next one. And then his comments were similar to the gentleman who was just speaking to this application as well. So I would like to see what the numbers actually do shake out to for the livestock facilities in the MDS with respect to both of these applications.
Thanks, Councillor Kyle. Any other questions? I'm going to get the clerk to read the recommendation, please.
Through your worship, the recommendation is that zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1625LG from GSP Group Inc., agent on behalf of owners 2160382 Ontario Incorporated and 2030717 Ontario Incorporated of 20 to 44 Muir Road South, proposing to amend the zoning from agricultural A Special Exception Agricultural Employment AE29, and Natural Heritage NH2 Natural Heritage Vegetation Protection Zone NH1, Open Space OS1, and Special Exception Light Industrial M2XX to permit the expansion of the existing industrial facility be received as information, and any comments/submissions regarding this application be referred to staff for review.
Everyone's clear on what they're voting on? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9.2 is also Lauren. This is the second half that you've been waiting for. Again, this is a public meeting. I'm going to declare the meeting open. And Lauren, you're going to start. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be presenting zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1525 LG submitted by GSP Group on behalf of Stubby's Brewcast, owners of the lands located at 348, 354 Harley Road. This application is to be received for information at this time. Subject lands are located north of Harley Road and south of 9th Concession Road, with a portion of the subject lands being within the New Durham settlement area. The subject lands are part of the industrial campus, which is comprised of the multiple parcels of land. This application is specific to 348 and 354 Harley Road. The subject lands have a frontage of 564 meters along Harley Road and 555 along 9th Concession Road. The subject lands have an approximate area of 84.48 hectares. The surrounding land uses consist of residential and industrial to the west and agriculture to the northeast and south. The subject lands are designated as general employment, agriculture, and natural heritage system and site-specific policy area, New Durham Future Development, ND1. The lands to be rezoned are within the New Durham settlement area, and similar to the previous application, the New Durham settlement area was expanded through municipal comprehensive review for the new County of Grant official plan. The subject lands are zoned as special exception agriculture, A1, and natural heritage. The special exception agriculture zoning permits 2 dwellings. The zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1525 LG proposes to rezone a portion of the subject lands from the special exception agriculture A1 to special exception light industrial M2XX, the natural heritage vegetation protection zone, in order to bring the subject lands into conformity with the general employment official plan designation and to facilitate the expansion of the existing industrial facility. The table provides a breakdown of the permitted uses within the light industrial zone, the existing uses on the abutting parcel, 20 to 44 Mura South, and the proposed uses. The permitted uses that are being proposed are consistent with zoning bylaw amendment application, ZBA 1625 LG at 20 to 44 Mura South. The table provides a breakdown of the zone provisions within the light industrial, the existing zone provisions on the abutting parcel, and the proposed zone provisions are highlighted in green. Since the permitted uses being proposed are consistent with the zoning bylaw amendment application at ZBA 1625 LG at 20 to 44 Muir Road South. For key considerations, so similar to the previous one, an agricultural impact assessment was submitted as part of the settlement area boundary expansion, and it did identify MDS deficiencies. The MDS needs to be addressed at the official plan level, so this will be addressed through the site-specific policy area, ND1. Portions of the site will be rezoned from agriculture to natural heritage vegetation protection zone. This is to establish buffers between the existing use and the natural heritage features, being the woodland to the north, and then the, creek, and there's a significant wetland as well to the south. The development is considered a Class 3 industrial use. So according to the D6 guidelines, the industrial use and more sensitive residential uses need to have a 300-meter separation distance. So this requirement is being met with the current proposal. And there is also the NH1 buffer to the south, which provides additional separation between the proposed industrial use and the residential uses along Harley Road. And detailed technical review would be completed as part of future site plan control application. The notice of the application was posted on the property on September 23rd, and notices were hand-delivered to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands on September 29th. Similar to the previous application, Indigenous engagement is a requirement of the complete application. So this application was also flagged for review by the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and their review must be completed with comments sufficiently addressed in advance of the application moving forward to recommendation. 2 public comments of concern were received as part of the public circulation. The comments have been included for council's review. They were regarding whether the use is considered light industrial, proximity to existing residential dwellings, impact of the expansion on residential water quality and quantity, increased noise, dust, and light pollution from industrial expansion, and whether the type B minimum distance separation would impact the existing livestock facilities. There were additional comments from members of the public seeking clarification on which portion of the subject lands were to be rezoned to industrial and whether the existing woodlot towards the north of the parcel would be impacted by the proposed development. So staff did confirm that the woodlot will remain, and a natural heritage vegetation protection buffer is being proposed to further protect the natural heritage features towards the north and south of the proposed industrial development. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Before we take questions, we're going to invite Brandon back up for their presentation.
Good evening again. Basically, this is the same as the last one, so for time's sake, I'll just skip it. And really, this here is 354. What we're proposing is a new hollow core plant here on the right of the drain, and then a new warehouse here on the left. Down here on the right, you can see this is Harley Road. And then, we're about 500 meters set back from Harley Road for the new plant, so we're keeping this agricultural land here. The creek flats, plus much more agricultural land as a buffer here to the existing residents. And then, obviously, leaving the woods here with a 30-meter buffer to add loan, so it's just kind of in between the 2 areas. And then, for the plant 6 is the new plant. It's basically a new plant to make hollow core. It's about a 190,000 square foot plant. And we'll be going from 4 foot wide hollow core to 8 feet wide. The reason why we want to do this is all our trucks are 8 feet now. Basically, you're doing less picks on site, less picks in the yard to try to make everything more efficient and drive down construction cost. And then, this would be employing approximately 60 to 80 employees in this plant. And then the warehouse is for support supplies for this new hollow core plant. And we figure there's probably about 10 employees in the warehouse. I'll turn over to Brandon here.
Just to carry on from the past application, so reports submitted in support of this portion of the application include a scoped environmental impact study, agricultural impact assessment, archaeological impact assessment, geotechnical and hydrogeological studies, traffic impact study, planning justification report, as well as a future site plan application. So again, the zoning before you tonight, or for future consideration, is really to bring the zoning of the property in line with the official plan as it's been updated. The benefit of where we're at in the process is that Stubbies has prepared some detailed site plans. So the site has been laid out. You get to see what is proposed and what that zoning will ultimately permit. But the purpose again is really to get the zoning in conformity with the official plan. And with that, Mike and I are happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you. Before we ask council if there's any questions, we're going to open it up to the room. If you're in the room and you'd like to speak for or against this application, could you please come forward to the podium? You just give me your name, please, and your address for the clerk.
Yes, my name is Bob Van Wyk, V-A-N-W-Y-K, two separate words. And I live at 362 Harley Road.
Thank you.
I'm going to read from prepared remarks, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for giving me this clarification here. I will return that. So good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors for the County of Brant, especially my Ward 4 councilors, Mr. Miller and Mr. Chambers, who is not present tonight. As I mentioned, my name is Bob Van Wyk, and I live at 362 Harley Road with my wife, Diane. We've owned this property since 2012, and it is physically located on the east side of metropolitan New Durham, on the north side of the Harley Road. This is the first time I've heard it referred to as a settlement. Thank you to the County of Brant for allowing me to speak at this public meeting about our concerns regarding the rezoning applications from Stubby's Precast, specifically ZBA 15-25-LG 348 to 354 Harley Road. While we fully respect the right of Stubby's Precast to grow their business, I present to you tonight out of a deep concern for the continued enjoyment of our rural property and its future resale value, and indeed the same for our neighbors. The fact that Stubby's will be expanding by building another manufacturing facility has certainly raised questions amongst those of us who live east of New Durham and thus have a more direct exposure to that planned expansion. Some of these questions or concerns include, for the County of Brant, do they have any concerns that they would even share with all the folks that live around this the subject property where the expansion is going to happen? In Ward 4, do our councilors, Mr. Chambers and Mr. Miller, have information that they could share or we could ask of? And I know that Mr. Miller has already made a few comments this evening. Farmland loss. We continue to give up valuable farmland to allow for residential and/or industrial construction. Once again, this farmland will never come back. Why is the County of Brant even entertaining the loss of farmland associated with the Burtis property? Concern number 2, are there any other locations that have been already developed for industrial use where land is available for Stubby's to expand? And if so, is it possible for them to have taken advantage of such an opportunity? Noise has been mentioned, but from our perspective, how much noise will be generated by the expanded operation, especially the new outside storage yard? And 2, what are Stubby's plans to reduce the noise heard by all neighbors surrounding the entire operation? Creek protection. Does the County of Brant currently test the water in any of the creeks that run through the current Stubby's property and the Burtis farm? If so, what do those testing results show? If not, does the county plan to do so in the future? 2, what effects will the expanded operation have on the creek that runs through the southern portion of their operation between Plant 1, the office Plant 2, and the southern third of the Burtis farm? We have a concern about possible runoffs, whether it's weather-related or other, with result to manufacturing and excess water. How will Stubby's prevent any possible future damage to the creek from ground runoffs and or wastewater from their entire operation? Dust. From our backyard, we can see the dust clouds when they occur. How will Stubby's reduce or eliminate any concrete dust that enters the air around us? And this would include dust from their concrete reclamation, i.e. crushing operations, which currently occur in the outside yard. Water use. It is my understanding and belief that Stubby's uses a lot of water throughout their entire operation. You need it to make concrete. The new expansion will significantly increase their water requirements, we suspect. Does the County of Brant know anything about the status and capacity of the aquifer that Stubby's draws on? And does that aquifer also expand to the New Durham settlement and the neighbors that surround us? Secondly, if Stubby's significantly increases their water pumping, could my well be affected? Example, lowered water levels, increased sulfur content, etc., since my well is probably, balance of probabilities, part of the same aquifer. 3, if I can find that our well is affected by a lowered water level and or increased sulfur content, how will the County of Brant help me? Lights. As mentioned already this evening, but the current Stubby's operation creates a lot of light pollution at night. Will the expansion do the same? And if so, what does Stubby's plan to do to at least attempt to reduce the amount of light generated by their whole facility so that we can continue to enjoy our evenings outside. Trees. I have to admit that I understand that the bushlands on the northern part of the Burtis property are going to remain intact, so that is very heartening. But I wonder if there is any sort of an offset required whenever these zoning applications happen, that replacement trees are, that may have been torn down already, or in the future that they will be replaced. Muir line infrastructure. The Muir line and its bridges will be subject to more heavy truck traffic originating from Stubbies. What plans does the county have to strengthen, upgrade the Muir line and its bridges? Increased commuter traffic. There is a large amount of traffic through and around New Durham associated with workers commuting to and from the current Stubbies facilities. Adding another plant could increase the current levels, and we've seen in the presentation 60 to 80 employees. And while it cannot be unequivocally confirmed, many of the speeding above the posted limits in New Durham, currently posted at 60 kilometers per hour, is associated with Stubbies workers. In fact, some of its own ready-mix concrete trucks travel through New Durham at well above the current posted limit. What does the county propose to help quell the need for speed through New Durham? And finally, remaining farmland. There is still some farmland on the southern third of the former Burtis farm that appears to be remaining zoned for agricultural use only. Could this remaining farmland be allowed by the County of Brant to be rezoned in the future to a non-agricultural use, such as residential and/or light industrial? Thank you for allowing me to speak, Mr. Mayor.
Does council have any questions for the presenter? Okay, then we'll go around and we'll ask for the second time. Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak, excuse me, to or for this application? Yep.
My name is Jan Schild, current residential at 370 Harley Road. Yeah, I moved into Harley, part of the farm side, it's countryside, and again, I want to reinstate that farmland. Once it's developed, it's gone. You're not using it again. And in the official plan of the County of Brant, under the heading Prime Agricultural Areas, it states the following. The prime agricultural area of the County of Brant is an area that is predominantly prime agricultural land. These lands are a finite resource and are important to the protection of the agricultural system, natural heritage system, and water resource system of the County of Brant. These lands are designed to prioritize farming and long-term protection of the agri-food network as a key component of the implementation of agricultural system in the County of Brant. My question is, how would rezoning agricultural land help to protect Brant County's finite agricultural area? That's my question.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions of the presenter? No. So I'm going to ask for the third time, is there anyone else in the room that wants to speak to or against this application of rezoning? Seeing none, I'll call the meeting closed. I'm going to get it on the floor. I need someone to put it on the floor for me. Councillor Bell, Councillor House. Council, do you want to speak? Yep. Councillor Miller?
Did you want the presenters to answer the questions that were raised?
Yeah. The presenters or one of the people that asked the questions you can direct them to them or to the presenter or to staff. Who do you want to present? Who do you want to hear from?
I think we should hear from the presenter as far as, water use and dust and whatnot.
Yep. Come on back up, Jason. Did you write down all the?
Yeah, I wrote down sure between Brandon and I and Lauren, we probably have all of them.
Great.
Yeah, like, are we perfect? No, we're not. We're all human, right? Like David said too, I think there's room for improvement on some things, but like certain instance runoff, all our stormwater goes into a stormwater pond, which has 4 bays and settlement areas. It's before going into the creek. Yeah, light pollution. Like as you can see, we try to locate the plant and then put the yard on the other side of the plant, so the lights from the yard and stuff, and even going for the noise from the yard, is the plant acts as a buffer. And then, yeah, the water use is, yeah, I think it's, I believe if I remember correctly, it's 10,000 liters per day we're allowed. And that's always monitored, or basically when they're going through site plan with the county, we always have to give whatever our water usage is. So, yeah, a lot of this stuff is site plan control, but we definitely did write it all down, and we'll take it in consideration and see where, yeah, we can come to an agreement.
Thank you. Counselor Miller, do you have anything else to add?
Well, I have a couple of questions, Mr. Mayor, if I could. And we could get the presenters back up. Just a couple questions.
Jason, you want to come back up? That's Brandon.
So in Lauren's presentation, she showed a setback for residential of 10 meters. We don't have to go back to the map, but what's the closest residence going to be to this new operation? We obviously got some natural heritage buffer in there.
Okay, see, so basically, I believe the closest residential line, which was down here, which is, the house is actually up here, from here to the zone line, I think it was like 310 meters.
Okay, so it's
So
well
the
above.
closest house, my guess would be about 400 meters.
Okay, so it's well above the 10-meter minimum. Okay, and then I wanted to ask, both this application and the previous one, they are going to be subject to site plan control. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so when we do site plan control, that tells us, or gives you guys direction on how to control the dust, yes?
Yep.
I think it talks about hours of operation, talks about lighting, talks about sound, noise. And that'll be worked on with staff, and I believe staff work in conjunction with the applicant. We don't see it. We used to see it. We used to ask to see it, and we're not going to see it in this case. Site plan control is the minimum that you guys need to do, right?
Correct.
It is. You come up with a plan.
It's the law.
Yeah, you guys got to do it. Now, if you drive down the 9th concession towards Bishop's Gate, you will come across a gravel pit. I don't know if it's still active, called Hoostro Pit, right? Hoostro, Walter Hoostro. And when Walter developed that pit, he was mandated to put up a single tree line on the berm. The berm is there for noise, the tree line is there for, kind of hide the pit. And Walter said at the time, well, why would I put up one tree line? Why don't I put up 10 and do it right? And that's exactly what he did. Go travel, and you don't know when you're driving around that pit that it is a gravel pit or a former gravel pit. It looks like a forest because there's 10 lines of trees. So all I'm saying is Walter went above and beyond, and I had a lot of respect for Walter when he was alive. I had even more for when I found that out as well. So the site plan control that you're going to have, that you're going to sign off, that Stubbies is going to sign off, like you say, at the end of the day, is the minimum you guys need to do. But again, I'll challenge you like I did on the first one. Stubbies needs to act like the big employee, big industry that they are, and do what you can to try to, get along as best you can with your neighbors. So I'm going to leave that with you and as a challenge, and hopefully you guys can, like I say, address a lot of the concerns that I've heard tonight, I've read, and I've also talked to people on the phone about. So, and again, I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councilor Miller. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you to everyone for coming out with your questions. I'm going to get the clerk to read the recommendation.
Through your worship, the recommendation is as follows. That zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1525LG from GSP Group Incorporated, agent on behalf of owners 588922 Ontario Incorporated, and Stubby Investment Incorporated of 348, 354 Harley Road, proposing to amend the zoning from special exception agricultural A1 to natural heritage vegetation protection zone NH1 and special exception light industrial M2XX to permit the expansion of the existing industrial facility, be received as information, and any comments/submissions regarding this application be referred to staff for review.
Everyone's clear on what they're voting on? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Takes us to number 10.1 on the agenda, which is another public meeting. So I'll declare the public meeting open first. This is about 202 West Quarter Line Road, Township Road. And Pierre, who has that?
Good evening, Council. My name is Pierre Bordeaux, planner at the County of Brant. Presenting staff recommendation on zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 19-24-PB concerning the property at 202 West Quarter Town Line Road in Harley. The application proposes to permit two primary residential dwellings on single agricultural zoned lot. After detailed review, staff recommend that the application be refused. The subject property zoned agricultural. The applicant constructed a second dwelling as a replacement for the original home, which was to be demolished. However, owner now seeks to retain both dwellings on the lot, contrary to the terms of the replacement dwelling agreement and existing zoning provisions, which allow only one primary residence per agricultural property. The property is approximately 53 acres in size and located in the former township of Burford. It currently contains two dwellings, each with a private well, septic, and driveway. The second dwelling is located over 450 meters from the original. This separation exacerbates the policy conflicts related to land use compatibility and MDS. Both dwellings fall within the agricultural zone. The original home was intended to be removed once the new dwelling was completed. Maintaining both dwellings creates a scenario where two independent residential nodes exist on one agricultural parcel, contrary to the zoning bylaw and official plan. As we see here, the north portion where the original dwelling exists and the southern portion where the newly constructed dwelling has been constructed. The mid-zone is designated natural heritage and is a woodland. The separation between the two dwellings are approximately 450 meters. The northern part or portion of the lot is around 4 acres 2.5 acres occupied by a single dwelling garage and landscape area, 1.4 acres actively farmed. The southern portion is around 15 acres are actively farmed. 3.8 acres have been used for the newly constructed dwelling. The official plan 2023 of the County of Brant, the property is designated agricultural and partially natural heritage. The official plan states clearly that residential uses must be accessory to agricultural use, and non-agricultural development should be directed to settlement areas. As per the zoning bylaw, the property is zoned agricultural and natural heritage system as well. The request for a second primary residence requires a site-specific amendment and represents an intensification not contemplated by the zoning framework. Historical background about the development of this land. In 2023, the County of Brant approved a replacement dwelling with the condition that the original home be removed. Correspondences since 2022 with the owner confirms that the owner was aware of this requirement. Securities were collected to ensure compliance, yet the owner now seeks to keep both dwellings. Key policy conflicts with Provincial Planning Statement 2024. The application conflicts with Policy 2.3.1, which protects prime agricultural land for long-term use. Policy 2.3.4.1 permits only agricultural and agricultural-related uses, surplus residence, not a second principal dwelling. Policy 4.3.2.5 permits additional residential units, and they have to be accessory to the principal dwelling, has to be clustered and serviced with the same primary dwelling. All this criteria has not been met in this case. Key policy conflicts to Official Plan 2023. Section 1.2, agricultural lands are a finite and protected resource. Section 2.1, which states that residential use allowed only if accessory to agricultural. Section 2.1.3, no agricultural impact assessment or mitigation was provided or submitted as part of this application. The impacts and concerns that the staff have considered were social in terms of encouraging rural residential intensification might undermine rural character and expands MDS impact zones. Environmental, in form of adds to rural sprawl and loss of farmland continuity. Economic, in terms of increases that land value, making it harder for farmers to acquire viable agricultural parcels. The planning rationale for the refusal, in summary, is that the application is inconsistent with the Provincial Planning Statement 2024. It does not conform with the official plan. It conflicts with Zoning Bylaw 6116. The ARU framework was not used and the required demolition agreement was not fulfilled. The agreement to demolish was not being fulfilled. Staff recommends the refusal of this zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 19-24-PB approval would undermine policy consistency, agricultural and land protection, and the county's long-term planning objectives. This application is being presented for recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Before we ask questions, we're going to have oh, it's you again. How are you? Come on back up. Do you have a presentation on this?
No, we'll just be speaking to it.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to take that, it's you again, but good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council and the public. My name is Brandon Flewelling. I'm a planner with GSP Group. This time we're here to talk to you about a much different application. We did have a public meeting on this application on September 9th. I am joined by the property owners, Mark and Brenda Roth, and they'll say a few words afterwards as well. Certainly, we've worked with staff through the submission of this application, through pre-consultation prior to the submission of the application, trying to look at different ways, looking at the ARU policies, looking at the official plan policies and so on. And I think what's important to remember of this application is that the provincial planning statement, the county official plan, very high-level documents, and we need overriding, large policy documents. This application doesn't fit, it's a round peg in a square hole. It's a unique property, and it needs to be considered based on its merits of what's on the ground. Sometimes the 30,000-foot approach is, not cognizant of what's happening on the ground. This property certainly does not fit the typical agricultural mold. And I'll refer to the staff report later, but Pierre provided in his presentation the air photo, which clearly shows two separated dwellings by a large woodlot in the middle with minimal agricultural land available for agricultural purposes. So as we first submitted, the first application, the first approach was to seek permission of the original dwelling as an additional residential unit. Again, knowing it doesn't tick all of the boxes. If somebody was coming in to apply, there are criteria in place. And the original dwelling versus the new dwelling, they don't clearly tick all of the boxes. The dwellings are separated by the large woodlot. They wouldn't share well and septic. They wouldn't share driveway access because of the separation on the property. But that doesn't mean it should be entirely dismissed as a potential additional residential type of unit. In fact, there's a strong argument that if we were looking to apply for an additional residential unit on this property in the future, if there was only one dwelling, the impacts on agricultural land would actually be greater because you'd be taking away from the larger agricultural portion of the site. The agricultural or the additional residential unit policies state that the dwelling units should be close together so as to cluster existing residential units and prevent further impacts to surrounding farming operations. Again, the characteristics of this site, that's not the case. That's not something that occurs in this situation. The two homes, as they exist now, likely have a lesser impact than if you tried to build a new ARU with the newer home. Further, with the ARU policies, it talks about when questions arise about determining which residential unit on property is considered the principal unit, it shall be the unit that has the largest building envelope. And that's out of the OP and the additional residential unit policies for outside of settlement areas. And I raise that as another key consideration in that a lot of the discussion is about primary and secondary dwelling units. But the ARU policies say, well, whichever one's bigger becomes the primary unit. And that's all part of the context of this property. The staff report talks about two principal dwellings, farmland fragmentation, rural residential intensification, as reasons for refusal of this application. We're here to say the uniqueness of this property gives enough reason that the on-the-ground impacts and the uniqueness of this property give it enough reason that it should be considered further and not dismissed wholly. Again, removing the original dwelling will provide, if you took the entirety of the land where the original dwelling is, 3.9 acres of agricultural land could presumably come back to agricultural operation. However, this is divided between a 2.5 acre piece, which is where the current home sits, and then a 1.4 acre piece, which is north of a drain that bisects that little piece. So you're looking at less than 4 acres of agricultural land, which, you know, is a hobby at best. This is not agricultural land for long-term agricultural uses. So the agricultural land is not being protected by the removal of the original dwelling. Again, going back to the staff report, the air photos provided on page 13. I guess my ask of council is to recognize that not all parcels are created equally. The agricultural policies certainly are there to protect prime agricultural land for agricultural purposes. Isn't gained in this application if it's refused and the original dwelling is demolished. What you lose is one dwelling and you really don't get any viable agricultural land back. It's on that basis that, you know, I perform my review of the application and the merits of it and think that there's good merit because of the uniqueness of this property for consideration. I'll pass it on to Mark, but we'll both remain for questions.
So just, I'll read this off here. So good evening, and thank you again for the opportunity to speak here before you make a final decision on this. So after my first presentation, I understand there were some questions about policy changes and the timing of county requirements and the impact on farmland, which I'd like to kind of go over some of those points. So when we began this process in 2022, the guidance we received from county staff was based on the policies and procedures in place at that time. We were told that signing a letter of undertaking and providing a $5,000 security deposit was the standard way to move forward while the zoning process worked its way through. So we were assured that this was a normal process, and I kind of explained that last time, and that demolishing the existing home would actually be required. That would not be required. That was just part of this process as it worked its way through the zoning application. So on that understanding, we removed our condition of purchase and moved ahead in good faith. So at the last meeting, it was mentioned the increase in the deposit of the $5,000 to $75,000. I just want to clarify some of that. I was informed it wasn't a result of necessarily a policy change. So after that meeting, through some email discussions with one of the counselors, he explained to me that instead of it was a response to too many cases where the original dwellings weren't removed. So I can understand the county requirements have been tightened to ensure that old abandoned dwellings are removed once new homes are built. That makes good sense. But in our case, we consulted with county staff early on in the process, assured that given the unique layout of the property, there was no reasons for these concerns. So whether this was a miscommunication among staff, I can't say. But what I can say with certainty, that we've acted in good faith at every step based entirely on the guidance and assurances that were given to us at that time. This was never about bending the rules or trying to cheat the system, but about following the process that was explained to us. So more importantly, I kind of want to emphasize what Brandon kind of alluded to already. No viable farmland would be lost by keeping the original home. Both homes meet the MDS requirements where they sit. And like Jeremy actually mentioned earlier tonight, these MDS setbacks are actually double to allow farmlands to come. So both homes actually meet those MDS setbacks. And as the mayor mentioned at last meeting, this parcel, so I'm referring to the piece on the north side there, is really only suitable for a house. In fact, the new home occupies more of the usable agricultural area than the original dwelling. And something to consider here that really highlights the inconsistency of the intent. The original dwelling, built in 1997, remodeled in 2020, is a well-maintained livable home. So if we tear that home down, then we could apply for an ARU where the new house on the south parcel is, which policy does allow for that. And that ARU on the south part would actually have a bigger impact on farmland than keeping the house where it is already today. So tearing down a home like that wouldn't create farmland. It would just waste a perfectly good house at a time when housing is badly needed. I understand the practical concern about setting a precedent, but it's more important that each property and application to be considered on its own merits. And that's how fairness and consistency are maintained in decisions like this. I respectfully ask council to consider our situation in that context and apply fairness and common sense, and recognizing that we follow the rules as they were explained to us, and that keeping both homes supports the housing needs without harming agricultural land. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Before I throw it back to council, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this recommendation? I'll ask for the second time. Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this recommendation? And I'll ask for the third time. Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? Seeing none, I'll declare the meeting closed. And I'll come back to, first of all, I want to get on the floor. I need a motion, Councillor Howes and Councillor Pierce. Thank you. Questions? Council? You're clear? No questions? Okay. If I can get the clerk to read out what the, and we have to be sure that everyone knows that when they vote, in the negative, they're actually voting for the in the affirmative. So just make sure you know what you're voting for. Censor.
Through your worship, the recommendation is as follows. That zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1924PB received from GSP Group Incorporated, agent on behalf of Mark Roth, owner of property legally described as Concession 10, Part Law 18, County of Brant, in the geographic former township of Burford, municipally known as 202 West Quarter Town Line Road, proposing to amend the zoning bylaw 6116 to permit 2 primary residential dwellings on 1 agricultural property as outlined in the bylaw attached to this report be refused, and that the reasons for refusal are as follows. The introduction of a second primary dwelling on prime agricultural land is not consistent with the permitted uses outlined in provincial and local planning policies, which prioritize agricultural activities and limit residential intensification. Approval of the application without clear alignment to the official plan may weaken the consistency of the county's planning framework and provincial policy objectives, potentially encouraging similar proposals that challenge land use permissions and undermine long-term planning goals, and allowing a second primary dwelling may compromise the long-term protection of agricultural lands.
Everyone's clear? So to vote first, you're voting to support the refusal. Yep. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. This will come before council, the next full council meeting. 10.2, sorry.
Well, this is a full council meeting.
Oh, it is a full, sorry, it is a full council meeting.
I made that mistake too, so.
There you go. Okay, so it takes us to 10.2, which is another public meeting, 612 Birch Road. Pierre, you're going to speak to that again? And Rashika, I think, is online there, so she'll be there when we need to speak to her.
Thank you, Spence. Good evening, Mayor again and members of the council. This is Pierre Bordeaux, planner at the County of Brant, presenting zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 12-25-PB for the property located at 612 Birch Road, submitted by 140-7839 Ontario Incorporated, Manuel Azevedo. The purpose of this application is to implement the related consent application B12-25-PB, which proposes severance of a surplus farm dwelling resulting from farm consolidation by a bona fide farmer. The purpose of the development is to rezone the retained parcel from agricultural to agricultural with special exception, site-specific A-201, to prohibit future residential development on the retained lands and recognize a reduced interior side yard setback of 10 meters where 15 meters is required to accommodate an existing agricultural structures. This ensures that farm can continue operating efficiently while protecting agricultural land from further fragmentation. The property is located in the former township of Brantford, fronting Birch Road, and has a total area of approximately 29 hectares. The severed parcel containing the existing dwelling and garage will be 0.4 hectares, and the retained parcel will remain in active agricultural production. The eastern portion of the site contains natural heritage features, including a watercourse, floodplain, and wetlands, all of which will remain undisturbed. This application was reviewed in accordance with the Planning Act Provincial Planning Statement 2024 and the County of Brant Official Plan 2024 and the zoning bylaw 6116. The official plan designation is agricultural and natural heritage on the east. The zoning bylaw is agricultural as well and natural heritage features on the east. Key policies that have been considered by staff against the Provincial Planning Statement 2024, that this application supports surplus farm dwelling severance under policy 4.3.3.1 subclause C, which provided the retained lands are zoned to prohibit new dwellings. Against Official Plan 2023, which allows this type of consent where it contributes to farm consolidation and the long-term protection of prime agricultural lands. This is the lands to be rezoned A-201, natural heritage features on the east, and this is the proposed severance. In terms of zoning bylaw 6116, there is a recognition of reduced interior side yard setback of 10 meters where 15 meters is required on the west part of the proposed severed parcel. There is an associated development application B12-25-PB, consent to sever a dwelling surplus to farming operation, will be presented to the Committee of Adjustment on October 16, 2025. So this is today for the application, and I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Okay. Before we do that, we'll hear from Rashika. You're still in line?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Ruchika Angrish from the Angrish Group, representing the owner for this application. I believe Pierre has given a great presentation explaining the zoning bylaw amendment that is in front of you. It implements the consent application, which is to be heard at the Committee of Adjustment meeting on Thursday, and to prohibit dwelling on the balance of the property as the house is surplus to the needs of the farmer. And this zoning bylaw amendment also implements the reduced side yard setback from the existing storage barns that remain on the retained lands. I'm happy to answer any questions if council members have.
Thank you. Before we go back to council, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this recommendation? I'll ask the second time. Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? And I'll ask for the third time. Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? Seeing none, I'll declare this part of the meeting closed, and I'll give it back to council. Any questions, concerns? No? Spencer, do you want to read it? Oh, I need to get on the floor, sorry. Councillor Howes and Councillor Coleman.
Through your worship, the staff recommendation is as follows. That zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1225 PB submitted by 1407839 Ontario Incorporated, courtesy of Manuel Azevedo, for the lands legally described as Part Lot 5, Range 1, Part 1 of 2R 5676, municipally known as 612 Birch Road, County of Brant, proposing to rezone the retained agricultural parcel from Agricultural A to a site-specific Agricultural A-201 zone in order to prohibit residential development on the retained parcel as a result of related surplus dwellings, severance B1225 PB, and permit a minimum interior side yard setback of 10 meters to the existing agricultural structure, where 15 meters is required, be approved, and that the reasons for approval are as follows. The proposal is consistent with Provincial Planning Statement 2024, including Section 4.3.3.1C, which permits surplus farm dwelling severances provided new dwellings rights are removed from the retained parcel, and Section 4.1, which directs protection of natural heritage features. The rezoning ensures that long-term protection of both prime agricultural lands and natural heritage features consistent with Part 5, Section 2.3.7 and 2.10 of the County of Brant Official Plan 2023. The proposed amendment maintains the intent and regulatory framework of zoning bylaw 6116 with appropriate recognition of the reduced side yard setback. The applications represent good planning as they are compatible with the surrounding agricultural uses, conserve sensitive ecological features, and comply with minimum distance separation requirements.
Council, is there any questions before we call the vote? The vote is to approve. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it passes. Okay, number 10.3 is 71 Woodsley Ave, and that's Ryan. The presentation coming. Can I get a mover to get it on the floor, please? Councillor McAlpine, I overlooked you last time. Say Councillor Oakley, it's on the floor. When we get there, we'll know that it's already on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This presentation it deals with applications ZBA 1025RC and PS 225RC related to a development proposal at 71 Woodsley Avenue from Arcadis Professional Services on behalf of Pinevest Homes. This recommendation is for the approval of both the draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment applications before you tonight. The subject lands are located at 71 Woodsley Avenue in the town of Paris, on the north side of Woodsley, south of Hartley, just east of Oak Ave. Subject lands are currently vacant, having historically been used for agricultural production. The frontages of 270 meters on Woodsley and 272 meters on Hartley, respectively. Total lot area is approximately 4.52 hectares. The subject lands are designated within the County of Brant's official plan as a community node. The community node areas located within the urban areas of the county, providing a destination for residents, workers, and visitors. Permitted uses include low, mid, and high-rise residential and mixed uses, as well as institutional, commercial, office, and community uses. Subject lands are currently zoned in the County of Brant zoning bylaw as light industrial M2, which permits a range of automotive repair, recreational facilities, wholesale establishment, and warehousing. This application is proposing to rezone the subject lands from M2 to a modified residential multiple medium density RM2, 37 and 38, as well as an open space zone for the proposed park block to be conveyed to the county. The draft plan of subdivision, as was outlined at the previous information meeting in July, it's really a base layer here in order to allow for the future creation of parcels of tied land within a common elements condominium. There's a legal framework within the Planning Act that allows for part lot control applications on lands located within a registered plan of subdivision. By registering a plan of subdivision here, it allows for the orderly development of the future condominium. And the alternative would be through consent, and would not be the most efficient use of our time to do 200 some odd consent applications. And so this is the most efficient way to allow for the future subdivision of lands for a condominium. In addition, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment will provide for site-specific provisions to allow for mixed-use buildings, as well as a reduced minimum lot area and increased coverage for row house dwellings. It would be important to note that future site plan control applications will be required for the actual development of the lands. The draft plan of subdivision in this instance, as outlined, is again a bit more of a legal framework to allow for future subdivision of the lands, but physical development still does require site plan control applications, which will likely be phased based on the developer's proposal and plans in terms of separating the row house and back-to-back towns from the future mixed-use apartment buildings. And also to note, draft plan of condominiums would be required for a future common elements condominium. The proposed development today is a little different, but altogether quite similar to what we reviewed at the July information meeting. The proposed development consists of 294 residential units with a mix of housing typologies. Proposal will entail 3 phases with up to 35 affordable units with within the proposed 7-story mixed-use building. The draft plan of subdivision will include the required development blocks, as well as a future park block to be conveyed to the county, and common elements area for the future plan of condominium. So again, before you tonight is a recommendation from staff for the approval of both the draft plan of subdivision and the zoning bylaw amendment, and I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Okay, I do have to go through the formalities of noting that this is a public meeting and it's now open. do you want to comment on behalf of the applicant, Odette? Yeah, okay. You have a presentation? Yeah. Sorry?
Is that better? Oh, that is better. Apologize. So again, my name is Odette Gomes of Arcadis, and I am here representing the property owners, and they are here with me tonight. So if there's any questions or clarification at any time, I know that they'll be happy to come up and help me. I just want to start by thanking Ryan and his team very much for getting us here today. You've worked really hard, and we really appreciate all of staff's hard work and dedication to this file. We're very happy to be here this evening and present this application. Ryan's done a great job in providing a lot of the details, so I will try to get this through this quickly in the interest of time and just kind of focus on some of the highlights here. Okay, let's. Can you get my presentation up? It's not showing. Thank you, that's great. So again, just quickly, this is at 71 Woodsley Avenue, which we're all aware of. Again, the proposed development includes 294 units. And again, it's townhouses. We're proposing 2 mixed-use blocks with ground floor commercial, and 35 of the residential units in those mixed-use blocks will be dedicated to affordable housing. This plan also includes a park block, so we've reduced the number of townhouses, removed just the block of townhouses in the top there, and we have included a park block for this development. So we have 533 parking spots that we're proposing for this development. 569 of those spaces is what is required by the zoning bylaw. So again, 569 is required. We are proposing 533. That 569 includes the 2 bedrooms for all of the affordable housing. So it assumes that the affordable housing units are all 2 bedroom, which would require the 1.25 plus 0.35 for the visitors. And if it was 1 bedrooms, they would require 1 parking spot for each unit plus 0.35. So that's what the current bylaw is requiring for the affordable spaces. So we also have 64 parking spots that are available for on-street parking, and that could help us with some of the short-term parking needs for the site. We do exceed the parking requirements for all the proposed townhouses, so we're providing the full required amount of parking, and as well as visitor parking for all the townhouses that we are proposing. We also meet the parking requirements for all the ground floor commercial units that we're proposing, as well as all the market units. So all the market units that we're proposing will have full parking requirements per the bylaw. So in order to make the affordable housing units feasible, we're requesting a reduction in the parking for those units, as well as a reduction in the visitor parking spaces. We have used the City of Brantford's affordable housing parking policies as a guideline, and their policy requires 0.5 spaces per unit for an affordable housing unit, as well as 0.15 spaces for visitors. We are proposing the 0.5 spaces per affordable housing unit plus 0.21 spaces for the visitor parking. We feel that that is an appropriate comparison, as the City of Brantford zoning bylaw is relatively new, and they've been looking at ways to be able to bring more affordable housing on board quickly, and this is one of the incentives that they have provided in their bylaw, as parking seems to be the biggest issue in us getting affordable housing and making affordable housing feasible to be built. So the intent is also for the commercial parking spots that we are providing. we're intending that those ones could also be used for visitor parking during the off hours of the commercial uses. So that helps a little bit with additional parking spots. Okay. So our proposed draft plan, again, I won't go into details with this again, as Ryan's done a great job explaining the intent of the draft plan. But basically, we're just creating 3 blocks through the draft plan so that it'll permit us to create those freehold lots in the future. Block 1, again, is all our townhouses. Block 2 is the 2 mixed-use buildings, and then Block 3 is the park block. So these are just, again, some examples of some of the proposed townhouses. So again, 86 traditional townhouses or row townhouses are being proposed in Block 1. And then we have 48 back-to-back townhouses that we're proposing in Block 1 as well. And then we've got 2 mixed-use buildings, again with ground floor commercial and residential units above it. So we have a total of 160 residential units, again 35 of which are affordable housing units in these 2 mixed-use buildings, and ground floor commercial, 480 square meters of ground floor commercial. So again, in order to facilitate our proposed development, we're asking for a zoning bylaw amendment tonight to rezone the lands from M2 to RM2 with some special provisions to permit our proposed development. And through the rezoning, we will also be rezoning the park block to open space, again, to permit that, that park for the development. So we have done extensive studies and reports that support our proposed development, which include, but are definitely not limited to, traffic impact studies, noise studies, land use compatibility. Again, they all support the development that we're proposing. The proposal also meets all the intent of the County of Brant policies in the official plan. And based on our analysis and the results of all the supporting studies that we've done to date, it's my professional opinion that this represents good planning. We still have a lot of work to do. There's still, as Ryan alluded to, there's still site plan, plan of condos. There's still a lot of work that we have to do to iron out all the details. So tonight, we're just trying to get the framework for the zoning bylaw put in place and create our development blocks so that we can move forward to the next stage, which is getting the development on board. So I thank you for your time tonight. And again, I'm happy to answer questions or provide you clarification. And again, Pine Vest owners are here to assist with that if required as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think before we put it back over to council, because I know council has some questions, because it is an open meeting, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? I'll ask for the second time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this recommendation or this application? And I'll ask for the third time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? Seeing none, I'll declare the public meeting closed. And I'll bring it back to council for questions. Councilor Howe is your first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the applicant or the consultant. So first of all, I'm happy to see increase in mixed types of housing available to our community. I want to clarify a couple things. You went fairly quickly, which I appreciate. But I just wanted to hit on a couple things. So. Absolutely. 294 units total. 160 are in the basically apartment building. And out of the 160 is 35 are affordable, capital A affordable housing, but the remainder out of the 160 are rentals.
Yes.
Right? And like, again, very happy to see all that. Fairly good location for it, I think. Parking is a concern. It's a concern I expressed in a recent discussion with Bob Stewart, and and I trust our planner's judgment on this, but I'm keeping Bob Stewart's home phone number available to give to anybody who complains about parking 5 years from now. But was it 569 parking spots that
Required
Required, you're doing 500?
for the entire development.
For the entire,
Yep,
and you're gonna do 533, you're asking for a.
total, yep.
And then you said there's 64 parking spots on the street
Mm-hmm.
that you said would help temporarily,
For short-term parking, yep.
short-term parking, okay?
Yeah, if somebody needs just to go into the commercial quickly and come out, those are
Right.
great spots for that, yep.
Are the 64 spots on the street part of your 533?
No, they're not.
Okay, so there's
They are not. The
533.
bylaw does not consider those, so they are not.
That's okay, I wanted to confirm that. And the part I'm struggling with, and it's not a deal breaker for me, but, two-bedroom unit, it could be a single parent and a child, one car, easy, works great. If there's two parents and two kids in a two-bedroom apartment, they've probably got two cars. And if that happens 125 times, that does grow a concern for me.
Then they won't be living here. Right, so that's, the parking will be there for the units, right? So if they're selling one-bedroom units with one parking spot, that's what we have available. So, and it also doesn't mean that it will only be 0.5 parking spaces for the affordable housing, because all the parking, so we have 209 parking spots for the mixed-use buildings. And that's parking that's allocated for the market units as well as the affordable units. So not everybody in the market units will necessarily need the full parking. We have 1.25 spaces also allocated for those market units, for the two-bedroom units, and not everybody will need those. So the parking just gets shuffled to who needs it at that particular time. So it won't be that it's just those parking spots that are available. It just gets shuffled. And it's, if needs changed, and that's kind of the point, that if your needs change and you need more parking, then maybe this is not the spot for you. Maybe there's another spot that you need to go to. But this is how they'll be marketing it, and that's how they'll be renting them, is that this is what's available.
Right.
Mr. House?
Yeah, thanks. Quick follow-up, Mr. Mayor, thanks. Right, it's the after the shuffling that our phone rings, right? Now, just one last question again, parking. On the remainder of the properties, the townhomes, you will be, and we always ask this question, but you will be counting the garage and the driveway as two parking spots, right?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so we have a parking spot, a driveway, and a garage for each of the townhouses. And there's also 57 additional visitor parking spots on top of that. And it exceeds the bylaw. So the bylaw requires us to provide 46, and we're providing 57 outside of those two spots.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Oded. I have a gripe with every developer that comes here. We have zoning bylaws. We set out what things like minimum lot areas, maximum lot coverage should be, and inevitably developers come back and ask for something different. Why?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, again, in this specific case, we are providing the full requirements of the bylaw for all the market units. The reason that we're asking for the reduced parking here is to make the affordable housing
No, it's not about parking.
feasible.
It's not about
You're
parking.
talking about setbacks and so forth?
I'm talking about minimum lot area.
Mm-hmm.
You're offering 164. Our RM2 talks for 185. So you're offering 10% less. I understand, I think I understand why, so you can build 10% more. But, you know, it's more of a question to our planners. You know, we set out a standard. Why do we change away from it? Why do we every time accept from every developer a variance that means that we might as well not write our standard? You may as well come in and say, this is what I like. So I'm kind of bitching at you, but I should be bitching at these guys.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can just, I guess, answer that very simply, and it's about the feasibility of the development, right? So we have to be able to design a development that is feasible for building it for construction. We can't just design developments that at the end of the day don't get built. So it's really about the feasibility and making the developments work, making them financially feasible to be able to have the developments that we need. And yes, unfortunately, that is what happens, is we have to come here and ask for those adjustments to make things work.
Jeremy, say something.
Jeremy.
Through the mayor to Councillor Bell. Point taken. But that is why we're doing a community planning permit system. Our zoning bylaw has to be updated because we have to get into conforming with the OP. And our bylaw is out of date. Things have changed dramatically in the last 10 to 15 years, obviously, with housing and the housing market, especially the last 5 even. So we are seeing a lot of different housing types and we're seeing a lot of challenges and we have to move with that. So part of that is going to be us reviewing our zoning and to review what happens in some of our zones. So our zoning is going to have to catch up to what's happening in the development world and match our OP. So that is part of what we're going to be moving forward with and reviewing. So when we implement a new zoning bylaw or a community planning permit system, whichever one it is, generally speaking, they should be sitting and the Planning Act says essentially we shouldn't amend them for a few years. We should let them sit and the developer should kind of live with those policies for a while and get into to see if they are workable and implementable properly. So we will be looking at that and we will be amending things so that we will be seeing what's appropriate for development and see some changes in our zoning layouts and sizes.
So excuse my cynicism, but this is a bit like speed limits. You know, we'll set the speed limit at 30 and the drivers will drive at 40 and we'll all feel, yeah, that's what happens. And I think whatever level we set, the next time a developer comes in, he'll say, well, actually, I'd like 5% or 10% less. I think we need to put our feet on the ground and say, that's what we said we want, that's what we expect. So my question to Odette would be, if you stuck to our RM2 zoning bylaw, how many properties would you put on this site? And would it be feasible?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know the answer to that question because we haven't done that exercise, but the likely answer is that the development would not be feasible, financially feasible.
Okay. So I have another question, which is related to it, if I may, Mr. Mayor. The back-to-back townhomes, our RM2 zoning bylaw at the moment doesn't have anything in there for back-to-backs. So how do we assess whether this suite of specifications is suitable? Do we have other back-to-backs in the county that we've approved that are similar size, or are these smaller than those that we've already approved?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bell, off the top of my head, do I know the sizes of other units? I'm not sure. I know there's been some other approvals and we're working through approvals for other back-to-backs. So this is very typical size and location. Essentially, there is no yards with back-to-backs, obviously, right? So you're just talking building and you're talking building footprint size and parking to go with it. So it becomes a very small footprint that's needed for these to take place. So this is typical to what we're seeing in other areas, both other cities and other urban areas like this for types of units and types of size. So it's not out of the norm.
Yeah, I'm going to keep on this theme if I may, because when you get to the residential and commercial building, I mean, it's essentially an apartment block. The minimum landscape that you're offering is 19%. Our RM2 zoning bylaw talks about 30%. So again, you know, just continuously chipping away at a set of standards that we have put forward as the basis for development in our county. And I actually object to that. I think we should hold developers to the standards that we set and not keep on accepting less and less and approving it. So I will stop at that and I will vote against.
Councillor Oakley, you're next.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a question so much as just a comment or some comments. Looking at this development, to me, I would agree with the staff assessment here that it follows everything we're asking for in our official plan. We're looking at a mix of housing types. We're looking at affordable housing. We're looking at mixed residential and commercial. All of these things that we're highlighting as, you know, the gold standard in our official plan. And as Councillor Bell has highlighted, it doesn't meet our zoning bylaw everywhere, which as we've also talked about this evening, it is out of date and needs to be updated to our official plan. So recognizing the shortcomings there of our current zoning bylaw as it relates to implementing our official plan, I'm happy to support this. I think it represents the direction that we set when we approved our official plan.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question to Jeremy and then a question to the applicant. When we take land out of employment and convert it to residential, we don't have to make up for it anywhere else?
Through the mayor to Councillor Miller, at this, when this was done, probably not, no, in that case, not at this point.
Okay. Question to Odette then. There was, as you know, from the previous meeting, concerns for molten metallurgy. Has there been any accommodations in this plan for their concerns?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the owners have worked very closely and are working very closely with Dolomite. There's a meeting scheduled even for later this week to talk some about the issues and how we resolve that. We really need to get this to site plan approval. We need to have a design building to know exactly what noise attenuation measures and so forth that we actually need to deal with. We have done extensive noise study and land use compatibility, and there are a number of resolutions to deal with. So based on the analysis done and based on the opinion of our experts, we have no doubt that it's an issue that's very easy to resolve.
Easy?
There are a lot of options, so it's not like there's just one thing that can be done. And the owners of like Dolomite, they are coming to the table and working with us. So it may just be just upgrading some equipment. There's options even on the construction end with windows and wall systems, all of those things. There's a lot of options that we've reviewed and discussed with our experts. So we believe that it will be resolved. And also it will be a requirement for our zoning bylaw. So it'll be a condition for that block number 2. So we do have to ensure that noise attenuation measures, all our D6 guidelines, all our land use compatibility, that it all the check marks are, the boxes are checked.
Okay, very good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do you want the recommended, you want me to read it out loud, Spencer? No. So the vote is to approve. Everyone's clear? All those in favor? Opposed? And we're passed. Thank you. We have 13.1, which is the letter that I wrote in support of Walters. Are you ready? You're okay with it? Let's make a recommendation of council and then I'll just move on.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, we can't hear online. I don't know if your mic is off.
It's me. Can you hear now? Okay, so we're at 13.1, which is the letter that I wrote, the letter of recommendation for Walters. You have a copy of it in front of you, councilors? Yeah, so we're just going to make it a council decision to write the letter. So I have it on the floor with Councillor Miller and Councillor Coleman. We're going to call the vote to send the letter in support of Walters. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. Resolutions, we don't have any other business. I didn't ask at the beginning of the meeting. Does anyone have anything that they want to add to other business? Seeing none, we'll go right to number 16, which is taking us in camera, and Councillor McAlpine, you have that.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Bell, that the County of Brant Council convene in camera to discuss S2392B, personal matters about and identify an individual, including municipal or local board employees. Brant Municipal Enterprises report to shareholders, Chief Executive Officer position, Darrell Lee.
All those in favor? We're going to go in camera. Okay, we're back in open session, and we're at 16.3. Counselor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's moved by myself and seconded by Counselor Oakley that the county council waive requirements of the shareholder declaration for Brant Municipal Enterprises, Inc. with respect to the process of recruitment of the BME's Chief Executive Officer to allow Allison Newton to be appointed CEO of BME effective January 1st, 2026, and that the BME CEO be directed to work with the County of Brant Human Resources staff to establish and post a BME Executive Director decision that will report to the BME CEO.
Perfect, thank you. We don't vote again? We have to vote again. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Take us to number 17, bylaws. Counselor Pierce, you have the bylaws.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Counselor Kyle, that bylaws numbered 102-25 to 104-25 be read a first time.
All those in favor of the first reading of the bylaws? Opposed? Carried. Second reading, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Counselor Kyle, that bylaws 102-25 to 104-25 be read a second time and all preambles and clauses be adopted.
Any questions to the second reading of the bylaws? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor of the second reading? Opposed and carried. Do it one more time, Counselor Pierce.
Will do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Counselor Kyle, that bylaws 102-25 to 104-25 be read a third time, passed, signed, and executed.
Thank you. All those in favor of the third reading of the bylaws? Opposed and carried, which takes us to number 18 on the agenda, which is our next meeting, which we have it down here for October the 28th, 6 o'clock. Oh, 4 o'clock. It's a special council meeting. I need an adjournment. Councillor Coleman, we're